intro. All right, before we get into the intro, do you guys have any little questions, easy questions I can ask for you? Anything like that? What are we thinking? What's going on? What did I miss? They tried to cancel us for going to Cuba, right? I heard that. I saw that. Ilhan Omar's daughter was on my brigade. They called her terrorist princess, Nepo baby terrorist princess, and I was like, damn, you sound sick as hell. I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous of that one, cause that was bomb as fuck. I'll show you where we're gonna show you where we stayed today. I'm gonna tell you all about where we stayed. Krusty Leslie, are you talking about the special period? I actually just read a book about the Cuba special period, so we can talk about that too if you want. Did we stay at a $2,500 a day 5-star hotel? Is that what they were saying? These fucking psychos. We're gonna get into the hotel thing. I'm gonna show you the hotel thing. How are the people holding up? So what I'm going to tell you is that no people are a monolith, right? But almost every single Cuban person I talked to said the same thing. This is what you need to know. Younger people are more likely to be influenced by Western media. That is why the United States aggressively hit the USSR with American rock and roll and pictures of American teenagers in blue jeans. That's why the USSR ended up struggling later on with teenagers having drug addiction issues, young people having drug addiction issues, because they saw people doing drugs in Western media and they wanted to be like Americans. So Cuba's no different. There is a contingency of young people in Cuba who are so tired of life under the blockade that they're like, maybe capitalism will fix it. Maybe capitalism will be better. But I'm going to tell you this. It is a very small contingent of the youth population. It's like, we're talking like less than a quarter of the youth population. And second of all, it's not like they don't like socialism. They don't like the blockade. And they think that going capitalist is going to like ingratiate them to the United States and give them a better quality of life. I talked to one of these guys. I talked to him. And he was like, I'm just tired. Like, I'm just tired. The people who are older, they remember their revolution. They remember life before socialism, right? And they're like, there's no way in hell we're going back there. That was horrible. And we'll get into that as well. But if you don't know, a brief overview. Before communism in Cuba, Americans basically treated it two ways. Number one, like sugar plantations with enslaved at times and then nearly enslaved workers on it. Right? Like literally the people who fled the first wave of communism owned sugar plantations and were slave owners, right? So that's a lot of people you see in Miami. And that means for the average Cuban, life was very bad. Very, very bad. And then the other thing that happened is the U.S. mob was in cahoots with the U.S. government to basically operate Cuba at a different period, like Las Vegas, just a place for drug sales, drug trafficking, gambling, and prostitution, right? Against people's wishes, right? So it was very, very bad for the average Cuban then as well. There's a reason why they had a revolution. Capitalism was not kind to them. Young people don't remember that. They learn about it in school, but it's different than the older people who remember it. Because this revolution is new, right? Some of the people who are like getting up there, Cuba has a huge life expectancy, like 80 years old. So a lot of the older people remember being a kid before the revolution. And they're like, no, we're not going back there. I will die defending this country before I go back to that. Young people don't remember that. So you do have a camp of people who are like, oh, maybe it would be better. But most people are ready to defend their revolution with their lives. And this is what most people say. Most people say, yes, it's hard. The blockade is hard. The tightening of the blockade has made things especially hard right now. But things have kind of always been hard here. And you know what? We figured it out. And it's not ideal, and they should lift the fucking blockade and let us live, let us breathe. But if they don't, we'll figure this out too. And that is why they're developing a solar panel infrastructure so aggressively right now. They are fighters. These people are fucking fighters, okay? They are fighters. And it's very, very, very inspiring to see. So if you tell a Cuban, hey, your country's on the brink of collapse, that's news to them. They don't feel on the brink of collapse. And I was there, and I'm going to tell you this. I was there with somebody else whose family, half was in Pakistan. So they grew up in a very wealthy family, and half of their wealthy family lived in Pakistan, and half of their wealthy family lived in, like Silicon Valley or something like that. So when I was in Cuba, they were talking about how bad blackouts were. And I was trying not to be rude, right? Because it is bad. It is bad that they have blackouts. Blackouts affect their internet access, their communications. It affects their water pumps. You can't get like water sometimes during a blackout because the water pumps aren't working. It is bad. But all I kept thinking was, I'm from Fresno, California. When it was 110 degrees in the summertime, our power grid wasn't developed enough to handle everybody running their air conditionings. We had blackouts. We had blackouts for hours, sometimes days on end in Fresno, California, in 110 degree weather. And we weren't dealing with a blockade. And nobody said that was a failure of capitalism, right? We didn't have an external reason. It just didn't matter to PG&E, our power company, for us to have power in 110 degree weather, because it would cost too much for them to improve the power system. So I was thinking that. And then I talked to somebody else who was from an affluent family and was like, yeah, I kind of feel crazy, but I go back to Pakistan and like my family's well off and we have blackouts all the time. We have the same water. Our water is exactly the same as theirs here. They told us, be prepared. You're going to see a lot of trash on the street. I'm looking around like, where? Is that the trash on the street? That little thing? What? Like, that's nothing. And she said, this has affirmed my belief in socialism. Because if they've managed to create this beautiful country that's dealing with the same regular issues that any country that's not super wealthy is dealing with, Pakistan. And she's like, my family, wealthy in Pakistan, they are living the same quality of life as the average Cuban. And she was like, that's a capitalist country, right? They've dealt with a history, obviously, imperialism, India, Pakistan, there's a lot going on there. But she's like, as far as I'm convinced, socialism is what saved Cubans from this horrible fate that the United States has placed them under, and Spain. So it was kind of my takeaway as well. And if you've grown up in a poor place and you go to Cuba, you'll probably find yourself a poor place in the United States, and you'll probably find yourself looking around going, this is the horrible conditions Cuba's under that makes it on the brink of collapse. My hometown is in worse conditions than this in the United States. And that's not to downplay what they're going through, because it is a problem. It definitely is a problem. And it's not the way we mean to say that, right? But what we're saying is, for this to be indicative of some sort of failure of socialism, well, then you would have to indict like 90% of the living conditions in the United States. Right? And we do indict them for a reason, right? So imagining what Cuba could be without the blockade is astounding, honestly. That's astounding. So how class conscious are the Cuban people I spoke to? Extremely. Even the ones who weren't super committed to communism, extremely. One of the guys I was talking to who was like, maybe capitalism will be better or whatever, maybe at this point something just has to change. He was a college student studying the final years of the USSR in college. That was his degree. So they are extremely class conscious, and they have, as part of it is their excellent literacy program. So we'll see this when we talk about education, but they're talking about Che Guevara. They're talking about class relations in school. We saw a little girl perform a poem that was talking about all the things that she would have been denied if they had not had their revolution because of her class background. And she was, I don't know, maybe like 10. They are very, very, very class conscious. And we're going to talk about this when we talk about Fidel theory too. There's a section of his writing that's education, not indoctrination. And that's why these people are educated and class conscious, but you still have some people that are like, maybe capitalism will be fine. They are not an indoctrinated people, but they are a highly educated people. So there's that as well. That's interesting. Viva Cuba. Yeah. Did we talk to anybody about anything regarding queer acceptance, queer culture there? So the center, I don't want to give it away where we stayed because it's kind of a big reveal, but the place we stayed was very, very gay friendly. They had gay pride flags hanging everywhere. Yes, Cuban people are very, very gay friendly. The current president of Cuba was gay friendly back in the 90s. And he was doing kind of municipal government work. He's always been very, very, very gay friendly as well. So the Cuban people in general are very accepting of gay people. And that is because when they had their 2019 constitutional overhaul, they launched a massive education campaign about gay rights. Every average Cuban person got to vote on the changes to the Constitution. I don't know if you guys know that. If you had internet access, you could vote. You can go in person places to vote. They all voted on every single thing that went into their Constitution. And they did a massive educational outreach first to get everybody educated on gay rights. And then everybody voted in favor of protecting gay rights codified in their Constitution. Do Americans know how privileged they are, or just ignore their privilege? Oh, old man labor. I actually think it's the opposite. So I've traveled to over 30 different cities internationally, and I grew up in a place in the United States that's the 7th highest concentrated poverty levels in the USA. I think that your understanding of the world, if you're an American, very much depends on where in the United States you grew up. If you grew up in a rural part of the South that's been largely abandoned by the federal government, that does not have resources, where your town is basically blighted, where, forks up. Fork, make good decisions. Good girl. She's going to go try to eat the cat's food. You are living in very, very, very bad living conditions that the United States is gaslighting you into thinking are privileged. And then they'll always be like, well, if you go to these other places in the world, it's so much worse. I've been to other places in the world. It's bad. It's bad. Living in, for example, the outskirts outside of Jackson, Mississippi, that is not a good or privileged quality of life. And anybody who's trying to convince you is gaslighting you to try to tell you capitalism is the greatest system on earth. It's not. It's very, very bad. So the only benefit that comes with living in the imperial core is that the U.S. is not bombing you currently, probably. But it's not always guaranteed as well, as we all know from Philadelphia, from the MOVE bombings. So I think that, for example, the person I told you about who was like, being in Cuba reaffirms my faith in socialism because of how amazing it is. She was wealthy. She's from a wealthy family, a well-off family here, half in, like Silicon Valley area and half in Pakistan. And she's like, it is better to be an average person in Cuba than it is to be wealthy in Pakistan, from what I've seen. Because at least you get all these access to medical services and education we don't get there. So I think that is more complicated than most Americans think. Now, I think it's kind of a projection. If you lived a very, very comfortable, privileged life in the United States, you might say that. But there's a lot of people in the United States dealing with extreme, extreme, extreme levels of poverty that you just frankly wouldn't have in some other places, right? My dad and I were both homeless when I was in high school, intermittently for me. My dad, more so. Me, I stayed with my mom. My mom would kick me out of the house a lot. I'd have nowhere to go. There'd be long periods of time where I didn't have nowhere to stay. That's not normal in other countries for that to happen. Okay. Yeah, Operation Northwoods, where they planned on bombing Miami to blame it on Cuba as justification to invade Cuba. Okay, what else? Any other questions? Is it true that the Cuban president and his family are super wealthy? No, his mom was a teacher and his dad operated a lathe machine. And he was he went to school for engineering in the same public school system every other Cuban does. And he was an engineering instructor. So no, that's not true. Okay, so anything else? Somebody asked about context. I'm going to tell you the whole context coming up. Yeah, you had no idea you were in poverty until someone told you free lunch in school was food stamps. Yes. And that's the thing. I think in the United States, they really want to push this idea that you're so lucky and privileged. And I think that's why it's so shocking for Americans to travel to other places. Like, I think that's why when Americans go to China, they lose their fucking minds, right? They're like, what? Because they convinced you your town having a fucking Taco Bell and a Walmart means you're the richest person on the planet. And that's not how that works. The quality of life in the United States actually is very bad. And anybody who's like, but there are slums in Brazil, it's like, yes. And the slums in Brazil or wherever, the slums in the global South exist to give people in the United States an extremely, extremely high quality of life. And people living in literal slums, sure, yes, that is very bad. There are people living in literal slums in the United States too. I live in the same city as Skid Row. Like, you cannot tell me this is not bad. And like, the UN even came and looked at Skid Row and also looked at rural Alabama and said both the conditions in Skid Row in Los Angeles and rural Alabama, I'm pulling up a picture for those of you who haven't seen it, were worse than the conditions they had seen anywhere in the world. Like, outside of refugee camps. They were like, outside of a refugee camp that is temporary, these are the worst conditions we've ever seen. And this is it. This is in my town. This is what it looks like to be homeless in my town, And there's, under Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, 30,000 more Californians became homeless. They're living in conditions like this regularly, regularly, without access to healthcare, without access to absolutely anything. So when people are like, do Americans know how privileged they are? It's like, well, which Americans? You're going to walk up to this person and tell them you're so lucky. You're so privileged, right? Okay, so can we speak to the lack of masking on the trip? This is a topic people don't care about. So, actually, the Cuban hospital director talked to us about COVID. They developed 5 COVID vaccines that are extremely, extremely effective. So, despite what the media tells you about Cuba, the best they were explaining to us, COVID is not a primary concern for them in any capacity. They even said that they tried to give the United States their vaccines because their vaccines are more effective than the American vaccines, and it broke their heart that the Americans said no and that they see us still struggling with COVID. That's something that the director of a hospital told me there. So a few people masked on the trip for their own concerns. I think 2 people in our group did. But generally speaking, the Cuban people aren't out masking. They have more advanced medical technology in terms of vaccination than we do. So that's kind of what was going on there. So I thought about it and I was like, most of the time we're outside anyway. The Cuban people aren't masking. And they're sitting there saying it broke their hearts that they couldn't give us their advanced COVID vaccines because they see us still struggling with it. And I was like, damn, okay. So, Ms. Silva, you could argue homeless encampments in the U.S. are worse than slums in the global south because slums are informal, but permanent housing. Brazil doesn't sweep the favelas. That happens in homeless encampments. It's true. It's very, very true. Yes, their inoculation rates are like 100%. And we'll talk about that when we do our healthcare day because they're very, very proud of how they pulled that out. Oh, yeah. Who were your comrades, 999? What org was it? I met so many international orgs. It was so cool. Was it Britain? Are you British? The British communists were awesome. Style. They had style. Yeah, I also use my testing machine. Yeah, I use my testing machine all the time. But not just me. Other people on the trip also were like, well, okay. I was asked to go for my media presence, and we'll get into that today too. RCD, cool. Yay. Yeah, I loved meeting them. They were so cool. Yeah, I use my testing machine regularly. There'll be like a random homeless person here or there sometimes, but it's usually a situation where they live in a very rural area and like usually they're dealing with some sort of issues, and they just a social worker hasn't found them yet. But I talked to a schizophrenic woman while I was there. I met a schizophrenic woman who was being cared for like informally. She just happened to be in a place, and everybody in Cuba, this is what I'm going to say. Whatever the media has told you, every single person in Cuba was happy to have us there. Oh, I think I did meet one homeless guy on the street. There was one homeless man I saw on the street the whole time. I don't know if he was homeless or not. He was just like a street guy. He's carrying around a bottle of rum. He was missing some teeth and he wanted to talk. And I had just had some rum. So, and I was like, yeah, what's up? So that was it. There was one guy I met who might have been homeless. I'm not sure. That was it. Was the schizophrenic woman in the mirror. Oh, Rab 669. What a good burn. That's so good. That's so clever. That's like when you're in like 5th grade and then you like learn words and then you just like think you're like, you it like filled me with like a childlike joy, like a childlike nostalgia for the world that I didn't know still exists. Yeah, it's like baby's first burn. Exactly. I'm like, oh, I'm used to YouTube comments calling me a stupid, ugly cunt. Oh, that was so sweet though, that one. That was kind of nice. So, the RCG are not trots. No. I did meet some trots though, and they lied to me about being trots. And then they gave me a magazine. And then somebody I was bunking with was like, oh, you met some trots? I was like, is this a trot mag? And she was like, yeah, they're trots. And I was like, fuck. But I used it because it was a hard glossy magazine. Those trots in their fucking media. And I used it to like hold all my other papers I got from the Marxist-Leninists. And yes, I did get Marxist-Leninist papers. Let me show you really fast. Hold on. Okay. And I brought it home, and my partner saw it, and then, my partner's, like, trolls me all the time, because they had USSR granny, and they're just like, hearing you talk about the USSR is just like hearing my grandma talking. You're just like, oh, Stalin can do no wrong. Oh, the USSR is perfect. So they troll me, so they're reading it, they're like, yeah, these trots are making some good points. Maybe I'll become a trot. And I'm like, I will literally break up with you. This isn't even funny. They were just joking, though. Okay, so this is from the British comrades that you guys were just talking about. Somebody in the chat was like, these are my comrades. Yeah, I got trot literature and turned it into a folder. This is their paper, and it's very cool. So we Marxist-Leninists have papers too. In Britain, the Marxist-Leninist makes papers too. So, just so you know. And they were really cool, and they had great style, and I'll actually show you. I'll show you one of the people I met. We also got the Worker Vanguard. I'm not familiar with this one. Someone handed me this one. This could be secret trots. What if everything's secret trots? I don't know. I don't know. Dear socialists, fight in DSA to break with Dems. Okay. It's all trot. Everything's trots. And then I got this. Partisan Defense Committee. PDC. I don't know if this is trots. I don't know. At first, I assume everybody giving you a paper is a trot. But then this, I was like, this isn't a trot. So I'll just take all the papers and we'll find out later. That was the Communist Party of Britain magazine. That's your party. Yay. Okay, yay. Love it. Physical media. Okay. All right, so that said, should we get into the today's programming on Cuba, everybody? Are we ready? Anybody else got a little question they want to get in there? Hello, first time chat. We're talking about Cuba. I'm on the RCG Insta page. Okay, cute. Should we look? I haven't looked. I mean, I haven't had internet. I know PSL posted me on their page, and then somebody was like, stop platforming battle in Pendleton, and then all these people yelled at them, and I was like, oh, that's funny. Trot. Yay for being a Trump supporter. Oh my God. Dandy Mandy 55. Yes. That's so cool. See, we're out here doing what liberals never could. We're turning MAGA into socialists. Okay. Checkmate, liberals. Liberals are like, I don't know. Have you tried telling them you hope they die? No, that doesn't work. Shockingly. Nope. Okay, get your snacks. Yeah, stop popping Madeline was hilarious. I saw you. I was like, that's Lord Oxium. Got it. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a huge help. Yeah, Chinese mustard. Yeah, they were really, really, really happy we were there. And because of the blockade, they don't have a lot of machinery to do a lot of the stuff. So a lot of it has to be done by hand. So it was very, very useful that we were there. Was it difficult to be vegan in Cuba? No, because the place we stayed, which I will tell you about, literally went out of their way to make me a special vegan meal every day. And I brought these like snack packs. Like I packed myself snacks in advance for every single day, like all partitioned out. So I would get like a proper intake of food while I was there, assuming I wouldn't be able to eat anything. I didn't even have to eat them because these people went out of their way to prepare me vegan meals, including vegan desserts every single day. They tracked down soy milk on the island for me. And they brought it in like day 3 and they're like, and I was like, oh, like, so I could drink coffee with soy milk. Like they were so fucking nice. It was awesome. So, yeah, they were angels. All right. So let's get into it. Let's get into the content about Cuba. So as you guys know, most of you, I went on the Nuestra America Convoy to Cuba. And I was part of the Let Cuba Live Youth Brigade, which is funny because I am 39 years old. However, in Cuba, youth is a term they apply up to the age of 35. So I was only slightly past the youth brigade. I don't know. So I was invited, I believe because of my social media presence, right? Not necessarily because of the org I was with. And when we were talking about org affiliations, I just said I was with Peace and Freedom Party, which is the electoral arm of socialism out here in California. So the convoys were composed of different groupings of people. The convoy was a big umbrella, and then many different brigades existed under it. In total, the convoy was roughly 600 people. So Code Pink and a group of, I believe, Italian communists brought the most people. Ours was 40 people. And we were specifically 40 people because we wanted to make sure we could all fit on one bus that was provided to us, so we didn't use extra fuel. So that was the biggest concern for us. So they maxed out the bus, and that's the number of people that came. We're only as young as we feel, Larry. You and me both, yes. So that's what was going on. Okay, wait, we were part of the RCG. They were trots. I don't know what's up with that then. Okay, that's good to know. I don't know what happens in Britain. 30 to 35-year-olds celebrating in the chat right now. You're young in Cuba. Remember that. You're young in Cuba. They love you. Because their life expectancy is 80. Because they do preventative health care. Who knew? Who fucking knew? So that is what happened. So there were some things that happened as the whole convoy. There were special meetings. And then there are things that happened just with our little delegation of 40 people. And then sometimes you'd be out at things and you'd run into another little delegation and you'd be like, oh my God, hey. And that's kind of how it went down. So our delegation was composed of multiple different groups, which I will get into and show you the details of. Why do Trots and MLs conflict so much today? What is the contention point? The contention point is the Trotskyist idea of permanent revolution. Marxist-Leninists think it's an abomination of Marx, and we follow Lenin, and Trotskyists only believe in a little bit of what Lenin said, basically. So we do not believe in that. We believe that you can do communism in one country as a jumping off point, and that, in fact, you are in a better position to help and assist communism develop around the world if you do communism in one country and work on yourself and build yourself up. And we saw that happen in the USSR under Stalin, and we also have seen that happen in China as being a successful technique. So that's kind of, we like to do things that work, and Trotskyists like to yell at you all the time and scold you and say, no, not like that, no, and then give you a newspaper. I'm not really sure. Socialism in one country understands the opposite implies colonialism and interference. Thank you, Larry. Yeah. So all the shit people usually don't like about the USSR, where they're like, they were going into these other countries and meddling too much, blah, 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 blah. That's like Trot shit. And Stalin was like, we got to stop doing this shit. This shit is not working, and it's making people hate us, and it's fucking weird. So ironically, the liberals who think they hate all these things about the USSR, but then also think they hate Stalin, they actually hate the shit that was happening in the USSR more under Trotsky's influence. And they actually would prefer Stalin's end approach to that. But they're too ding-dong to know that. So it was very, very interesting. An egg must break open from the inside. Exactly. As Brody said, for anybody who doesn't know, that's a saying about revolution. An egg that's broken from the outside will just run and become a mess. An egg that's broken from an inside will give new life. And that's a metaphor for revolution. You can't force a revolution from the outside. You'll just create a mess. It must come from within and make new life. Yes, I met a lot of party members and members of the Young Communist Party, members of the government, members of the CDRs, the Community Defense of the Revolution groups, things like that. Okay. So, we're going to start today. I'm just going to give you guys an overview to get us started about the blockade. For anybody who's like, I know it's a blockade, but like, what? Because some people do get confused about the blockade. So I found this little thing. It's just a little quick five points to know about the blockade that I think is pretty good little summary. So we're just going to do a little overview so you guys know what's going on. On February 3rd, 1962, and as we get into the portion of the stream coming up this week where we talk about the history of the revolution, you'll find 1962 is very early. 1959 was the date of the revolution in Cuba. Democratic President John F. Kennedy signed Executive Order 3447 establishing the economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed by the United States against Cuba. This decision, designed to prevent the Cuban economy from functioning and undermine popular support for the revolution, was based on the application of the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, originally passed in the context of World War I against the German Empire and its allies. Since then, the strategy of economic encirclement and suffocation has become a central component of U.S. policy toward Cuba, with the aim of limiting the Cuban people's right to exercise their sovereignty and build an independent project free from imperial subordination. So although the total blockade was made official on that date, restrictive measures aimed at affecting strategic sectors of the country's economy and defense had already been in place since the triumph of the Cuban Revolution in 1959. The fundamental objectives of this policy were clearly expressed in the memorandum of Undersecretary of State Lester D. Mallory, dated April 6, 1960, which stated the need to generate discontent and despair by deteriorating economic conditions, depriving Cuba of resources and supplies to provoke a social crisis that would lead to the overthrow of the government. So I do have this declassified document that says this. Let's see if I still have it in here. Let's see if we can find it. So we can give you the general info. I might have moved it to my little history overview. Yes, I did. Let me open it. I'm going to be referencing a lot of things on my desktop, so you're going to see a lot of this action today. Here it is. So this is a document from April 6th, 1960, from Mallory that we are talking about here, okay? So, salient conditions respecting the life of the present government of Cuba are: the majority of Cubans support Castro. Castro is who initiated their socialist revolution, which we will talk more about in detail in another day this week. The lowest estimate I have seen is 50%. So even when they're trying to rig the numbers, over half of the Cuban people were supportive of Castro. There is no effective political opposition. Nobody else wanted to take power away or wanted to counter him. Fidel Castro and other members of the Cuban government espouse or condone communist influence. That is true, and we will get into Castro's thoughts on Marxist-Leninism specifically on Theory Thursday. Communist influence is pervading the government and the body politic at an amazingly fast rate. Yes, you know why? They did that thing communists do when they come to power. They started teaching everybody how to read. And once people started to read, they started to develop literacy skills. They started learning about Marxism, Marxist-Leninism. And they were like, hell yeah, this sounds great to me. Militant opposition to Castro from without Cuba would only serve his and the communist state, or cause rather. So, oh, thank you, Ghost in this Hell. Yay! Thank you. 10. Yay, 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 yay. And then the only foreseeable means of alienating internal support is through disenchantment and disaffection based on economic dissatisfaction and hardship. So you need to understand that we are putting sanctions on Cuba because they are communist, and we want to basically make them hate their government. So our goal, okay? Explicitly, hold on, is this. Communism, we know, does not actually create bad conditions. We know it creates good conditions. We know it raises life expectancy. We know it raises literacy rates. Our goal was to force conditions on the island to be so bad, ironically, materially for the masses, right? The U.S. government understands that Marxism is real and works because they try to affect the material conditions of the people on the island to get them so upset at their material conditions that they have an anti-communist revolution. Comrade Thuggin, thank you. Yay, 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 yay. 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 So, the blockade is to try to convince people in Cuba and around the world that communism makes your material conditions bad. That you have a bad life because of communism, so you should have a revolution and overthrow your communist government and go capitalist. Now, they have to do this. Why? Because the reality is that communism actually improves your quality of life. So how do you artificially make the quality of life somewhere bad? You strangle them economically. That's what you do. So that's why on Weapons Wednesday, we're going to be talking about sanctions at one point next week, because sanctions are a tool of economic warfare. They want to make Cubans starving with spotty access to power, no access to transportation, all of these things, right? So that they can look and say, oh my God, look what communism did to you. It failed. So this is especially what they're saying. So number 6 is the most important part of this, right? The only foreseeable means of alienating internal support, because they're like, they love communism. They love Castro. They love him. This is the only way we're going to alienate internal support. The only way we're going to make these people not like Castro and communism is through disenchantment and disaffection based on economic dissatisfaction and hardship. The only way we're going to get these people to hate Castro and communism is if we make them so fucking poor, they have no choice but to beg for something different. All right? So that is the goal. It's there. It's written there. If the above are accepted or cannot be successfully countered, it follows that every possible means should be undertaken promptly to weaken the economic life of Cuba. If such a policy is adopted, it should be the result of a positive decision which would call forth a line of action which, while as adroit and inconspicuous as possible, makes the greatest inroads in denying money and supplies to Cuba, to decrease monetary and real wages, to bring about hunger, desperation, and overthrow of the government. All right? This is what they are trying to do. We are trying, and tell everybody, when people are like, why are we doing this to Cuba? I mean, if you can link them to this, fucking great, right? Screenshot this, save it on your phone, text it to everybody you know. Look, if you want to screenshot it right now, actually, look, I'll even position it nice, like get it like so nothing's got my logo over it, you know, like just like look there you go. Screenshot away, save this for reference, babes. This is gonna be your greatest friend encountering this. Okay, everybody got it? Okay, so this is it. This is what we are trying to do. We are trying to deny money and supplies to Cuba to decrease their money, their real wages, and to make them hungry and desperate so they overthrow their communist government, because communism is bad for American business. Okay? The principal item in our economic quiver would be the flexible authority in the sugar legislation at the time. This is the 1960s. This needs to be sought urgently, blah, 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 blah. All right, so that's what's going on there. Now, this is the document that they're talking about here about this. Why is it a blockade, though, and not just an embargo? Well, the measures applied by the U.S. government against Cuba do not strictly correspond to the definition of embargo. In legal terms, this term is usually understood as a precautionary measure intended to retain assets to ensure compliance with legitimate obligations, generally authorized by a competent authority. However, Cuba is not a debtor to the United States. It is not engaged in acts that would justify under international law the confiscation or liquidation of its resources. The only two countries under this kind of blockade today currently are Cuba and the DPRK. And we will talk about the DPRK because there were people on our contingency representing the Korean diaspora who are fighting for the one true unified Korea, right, and the defense of DPRK. So we're going to talk about that. And I did this killer interview with them, and my phone deleted it. So I'm so mad. I did an awesome interview with them. They're so cool. But whatever. I still have some footage of them talking to the general group that we'll play. And you can learn more about their org, and I'll talk to you about their org. And I'm going to hopefully try to get in touch with the LA branch of their org to maybe set something up in the future. I know, I'm so mad. It was the last thing I recorded before I left, and then my phone just like deleted half of the last day randomly. It's horrible. So, but yeah, this is what a blockade is. And we were doing this to DPRK, and we were doing this to Cuba. Basically, the point of this, right, cutting off communication with the state in order to force its surrender through coercion or deprivation. Its scope and severity reflect measures typical of an undeclared war against the Cuban people. In addition, the blockade has a broad and integrated extraterritorial component, so that we are not dealing with a simple prohibition of trade and investment between Cuba and the U.S. What we are seeing is a veritable economic war that includes obstacles, prohibitions, and coercive measures to prevent third countries from engaging with Cuba. Third countries, this is important. So a lot of people are like, it's just the United States. This is not a UN blockade. This is not a UN embargo or sanction. This is just the United States. So why does it affect other countries? We will get into this. It does affect other countries, though. The blockade imposed by the United States remains in force and is evolved into one of the most prolonged and complex forms of economic warfare ever waged against a sovereign state. It is essentially extraterritorial nature in violation of international law, and it seeks to isolate Cuba and punish those who establish any economic, commercial, or financial ties with the country. Those are third parties, right? Through pressure, blackmail, and penalties. Now, this is why you can't just send money to Cuba. They won't let you. You can't download apps on your phone when you're in Cuba. They won't let you. And this is going to get into also why some people in Cuba had to stay in fancy 5-star hotels. Because the United States government won't let you stay in any hotel that's not owned by a private company with ties to the United States. Because that would be giving money to Cuba. Right? So all of the Cuban hotels, off limits if you're an American, except for like 2, which is crazy. But we'll talk about that. Ooh, we got this little cat emoji. Here we go. All right, so the persistent goal is to deprive the island of necessary income, deteriorate the living conditions of the population. Also, you can tell I was yelling and chanting all week. My voice is going. And I'm not even the best chanter. Generate shortages of food, medicine, and other essential goods, and cause structural difficulties in its economic development. Between March 2024 and February 2025, the material damage caused to Cuba is estimated to have amounted to approximately $7.5 billion. This is an island a quarter the size of California. This is major. This is major to their economy. $7.5 billion to their economy is massive, representing an increase of almost 50% over the previous cycle. To justify these measures, U.S. authorities have promoted a narrative aimed at minimizing or even denying the effects of the blockade, presenting it as a minor restriction with no significant impact on the Cuban economy. However, the empirical evidence and available figures contradict this position, reflecting profound and ongoing consequences for the island's productive and social fabric. Likewise, in recent months, U.S. policy has taken a more openly coercive approach. The executive order announced January 29th exemplifies this trend, publicly declaring the intention to deprive Cuba of any fuel supplies, thereby deepening the mechanisms of economic suffocation established by previous administrations. All right. So, what does the international community say? The UN, who is evil, by the way, like the UN is evil. The UN has even voted 33 times to pressure the United States to end the blockade against Cuba. And we're like, no, we're not gonna. Even the UN is like, damn, you're being really fucked up to Cuba. Okay. And that says a lot because the UN, Nuestra happened, right? Like, need I say more? The UN is like, yeah, we'll destroy Haiti. Whatever, that's fine. We'll destroy Korea. Totally. The people who destroyed Haiti and Korea are looking at the United States like, damn, that's cold. That's fucked up what you're doing. So, some perspective for you, okay? Yes, I'm reading from the pinned link right now. Yes. Now, the reason why this affects other countries is because we also say that if you are another country, if you trade anything with Cuba that has 10% of that item made in the United States or coming from the United States in some way, now you're getting blockaded. Like, you're basically cut off from us too. We won't do any trade with you. So some countries are just like, I don't know what has 10% of everything made in a place. So I'm just not going to trade with Cuba because we don't have the resources to check that kind of thing. So there are countries who do trade some things with Cuba, but not as much as they normally would because of that. Now, an additional consideration of this is that we have also made it so that Americans, and we'll talk about this in more detail later, can basically sue Cuba for like lost wages or lost things like this. And this applies to people who do business with Cuba as well. So it just really, the way we structure our internal kind of blockade of the USA really makes it difficult for other countries to trade with both Cuba and the United States. And Cuba is a small, relatively impoverished nation, right? So if they have to choose, they're going to choose the United States for their own survival. And that is why it ends up being global in its nature. And we'll get more into that in detail when we talk about the sanctions next Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, not tomorrow, but next Wednesday. So I'm just going to do a little overview now. Okay? So that's what's going on with the blockade. Cuba wants the blockade lifted. That's it. They just want the blockade lifted so they can trade. That's all they want. Now, the reason we went on this convoy is because the restrictions against fuel that have recently happened are significantly making things more difficult for the Cuban people. They did not anticipate suddenly losing the primary source of their fuel, which was Venezuela. When Donald Trump went after Venezuela, it was because he had it set up in his mind, this domino effect, that it would allow the United States access to Venezuelan oil, which meant that we wouldn't be reliant on Iranian oil, and also it would cut the flow of oil to Cuba, which meant we could take Cuba. The United States has always wanted to take Cuba and basically turn it into Puerto Rico or turn it into Hawaii. All right, that's our goal. Our goal is to take Cuba. So Venezuela was step one in this domino plan that the United States government laid out. And this was really surprising to the Cuban people. They've been getting their oil from Venezuela. All of a sudden, the United States bombs Venezuela, murders people, including like over 30 Cubans who were there in Venezuela at the time, I might add. And, kidnaps their president and then starts seizing control of their oil tankers. This was sudden, and Cuba had not anticipated this. So Cuba is now all of a sudden without oil. This is shocking to their system, and their system was already precarious to begin with because they don't have access to resources. They are pretty good at getting around things that require a blockade. They're very ingenuitive. They make things when they can't get things. However, oil, they were not prepared for this. They had already been working with China to build solar panel infrastructure. 38% of their power grid, I believe, runs off of solar power now. Fact check me on that. But I believe it's that. And it's supposed to be around 50%, I think, by 2028. So they'd already been trying to do this, but they, again, did not anticipate losing like all of their access to oil overnight. So that is what made this urgent situation and what caused a number of things to happen. Now, the brigade I was with was part of the Let Cuba Live org. They're the people who raised $500,000 to bring solar panels to Cuba. So we did that. We brought $500,000 worth of solar panels to Cuba. We also, in our personal bags, we checked a bag. So this is customary when you go to Cuba. You bring your own luggage in a carry-on, and you bring a checked bag that you give directly to the Cuban people. This is stuff we brought medicines. They can't get a lot of over-the-counter medicines very easily. They make a lot of their own medicines there, obviously, which we'll talk about in our healthcare thing. We talked a little bit about it with their vaccines. They have great medical tech. But certain things, just like Tylenol, those things are easier for us to just bring them. And again, your Twitch stream subscriptions paid for all of that. Last month's Twitch stream money paid for my trip to Cuba, paid for 4,000 ibuprofens, a ton of solar lights, period supplies, soaps, shampoos, conditioners, things that are just harder for them. They're not able to like import easily from the outside world. So everybody brought one of those suitcases along with us. I think we had I managed to bring 18 personal solar powered lights that you can have in your home. So every Cuban now is trying to get these personal solar powered lights in their home. They leave them outside during the day, and if the power goes out at night, they just bring them inside and they carry them around with them, and it works pretty well. So we got 18 families solar panel powered lights for just inside their house as well. So first immediate source Virgo says over 20%. That could be real. I'm not confident in that number. I heard someone else say it and I didn't fact check it. So I'm like, I trust the person who said it, but I don't trust anyone to be perfect. We all make mistakes. So that's where that came from. So Kubashi, when we talk about the blackout in the healthcare system, we're going to talk about that on the healthcare day. And the healthcare day is going to be great because you're going to hear from the director of a hospital who will talk to you explicitly about how the blackouts affect them. And that's going to be next Monday. So we got a whole program we're going to get through. But what you basically need to know is the Cuban people are resilient as hell. And I also want to say, we act like the blackouts are new to the island. The blackouts are not new to the island. They have always dealt with blackouts. These blackouts are more intense, more prolonged. However, they have always dealt with blackouts on the island. So they've always had to have workarounds in place. So the hospital system, they get the immediate access to these extra fuel reserves they have saved just for their healthcare system. So I know some other people have interviewed doctors who are like, we don't get access to this. The big hospitals, though, the emergency hospitals, they do get access to emergency fuel reserves, and that has not been an issue for them yet. They switched into like a generator mode. They change things around. They deprioritize certain surgeries that aren't very, very urgent, and they just rework everything to work with a little bit of fuel that they have. And you'll see this woman say, I think I filmed her saying this, maybe I didn't, but she basically said this, when you're in school and you have a really, really, really hard teacher and you hate them, but at the end you learned a lot from them because they were so hard on you. She's like, the blockade is our teacher. The blockade is the hardest teacher on the planet and we hate it. But in the end, we always learn new ways to survive, and we're survivors, and that's what we're going to do. Okay. We have this. Oh, here we go, Virgo. Photovoltaic parks are generating on average 30% of the energy that the country consumes daily during the hours they operate. Miguel Diaz-Canel, first secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Cuba and president of the Republic, recently stated in a special appearance before the press. Yay. Okay, so the person was correct. Yay. And also, I just want you guys to know, look at how this is worded. Diaz-Canel has a job in the Communist Party and also a job in the government. And those are two different things, right? Just like in DPRK when we talk about that. Kim Jong-un has a job in the party. He has a job in the government. Not everybody in the government is a member of the party, and not everybody in the party is a member of the government. Those are two different things. Just important to point out. Hello, everybody. So that's what's going on there. Now, you all probably saw this. I saw a few of these when I came back. You've probably seen funnier news than I have. I just saw these two and I was like, this is going to be great for the Twitch stream. Apparently, while we were in Cuba bringing people solar panels, bringing people aid, this kind of news was floating around the internet. Far-left activists stay in 5-star Cuban hotel as island suffers total blackout. We've got some video of Code Pink right here. And this article says, far-left activist groups and personalities flocked to Havana, Cuba this week in an effort to protest the economic sanctions imposed on the country by President Donald Trump's administration. The far-left group Code Pink, who is also under investigation by the federal government, just like PSL is and Shirla is, sponsored flights to the communist-led island. And the group was joined by Isra Hirsi, the daughter of Representative Ilhan Omar, Democrat from Minnesota, left-wing Twitch streamer Hassan Piker, and an ally of Democratic Socialist New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Now, this is Fox News, right? So we got the Super Republic slant on this. Now, what I want to say is this. This makes it sound like Isra and Hassan went with Code Pink. Isra, I know, did not go with Code Pink because Isra was on my coalition, my delegation. So she was not on Code Pink. I was not with Code Pink. That was different. But some personalities you might recognize were with Code Pink. Imani B, was with Code Pink. I saw Imani. That was awesome. James Ray was there. I'm not sure if James Ray was with Code Pink or not, but I met James at the airport. That was very cool. Guy, I met Guy for the first time, like I Am Guy or whoever that is on TikTok, was there with Code Pink. So they did bring a lot of activists and things like that, but not everybody. And Isra was not with Code Pink. Isra was with my brigade, and we were not Code Pink or affiliated with Code Pink. And again, some of the tweets about Isra were some of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen. They're like, terrorist daughter, blah, blah. And I was like, damn, they made you sound so cool. Interesting. Yeah, new Pendleton principle, if the U.S. government is investigating an org, it's an org you can trust. Yeah, your favorite guy. That's his name. Your favorite guy. Yeah. I met him. He was really, really nice at the airport. So the group has faced heavy backlash for staying in expensive hotels to meet with government officials, even as Cuban residents go without electricity. There are two things I want to say about this. But the first thing I'm going to say is, because Isra was in my group, I can tell you she did not stay in an expensive hotel. And I'll tell you about where we stayed. But some people did stay in expensive hotels, and then I will explain to you why. Trump imposed an oil blockade on Cuba this year after the U.S. captured former Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro. No explanation of why. No backstory here. Just why not? Some delegates in the Nuestra America Convoy, including Piker, were staying at the 5-star Grand Hotel Bristol Melia Collection and similar resorts. Piker defended the move on social media, saying U.S. law required that they stay at the ritzy hotels. It does. He is correct. It does. And we will talk about that and talk about why. The American government makes it illegal for Americans to stay wherever they want when they're in Cuba, Piker told his followers. They have to stay in what they've declared to be 5-star hotels. This is true. The claim received swift pushback on social media. If they're going to stay in a hotel, I'm going to say. If they're going to stay in a hotel. You can stay in places that are not hotels, which is what my group did, but you have to set it up in advance, and there's not a lot of them. So my group had a good relationship with a place where we ended up staying, which I'll tell you the details of soon. But for these people who don't go to Cuba regularly, don't have relationships like that on the island, that is their only kind of option, their only kind of choice. Yes, there's a list of approved spots, and I'll show that too. U.S. law, people on Twitter were saying only prevents Americans from staying at venues owned by the Cuban government or its officials. Yes, however, the private enterprises in Cuba, you're not going to go to Cuba to open up a fucking Motel 6. It's rich people in Cuba opening up really, really fancy hotels, and there's not a lot of them. Code Pink says it delivered thousands of pounds of aid to Cuba as part of the trip, which was organized by Cuban politician Mariela Castro and a nonprofit called Progressive International, according to the New York Post. This is correct. So the convoy was organized by Progressive International, invited a lot of people to join. Oh, look, there's Isra. This is Isra, who's on the trip. Isra is very, very cool. I actually told Isra to start Twitch streaming, so we'll see if she does. She's really fucking cool, though. I like her a lot. So the group's arrival to Cuba and subsequent flood of social media videos came the same weekend that the Cuban Electric Union announced a total blackout across the island on Saturday. I actually didn't have access. I didn't do it right, basically. I thought we wouldn't have access to internet at all because I was reading the American news. You have access to internet most of the day, even with the blackouts. So I didn't prepare correctly. So I downloaded an eSIM just for emergencies, but I only got a gig of data. I did not download any. I got a burner phone in case my phone got seized by Border Patrol, which they often do. I did not download any social media apps in advance because I did not understand you can't download any apps once you are in Cuba because that's part of the blockade. I couldn't even use my bank when I was in Cuba. Not like my card wouldn't work. I couldn't access my online banking to look at my bank balance. They emailed me and they were like, what are you doing in Cuba? Tell us why, blah, 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 blah. So I didn't understand that. So the way to do it, if you ever go to Cuba in advance, get a burner phone. If you buy a used phone at Best Buy, you can return it within 2 weeks for a full refund. That's what I'm going to do. So go to Best Buy, get a used burner phone, a cheap phone, download every app you think you might need in advance, get an eSIM, and do it that way. That's what I think you should do, and set up some sort of cloud storage before you get down there for all your photos and videos in case your phone gets seized at the border. That would be my recommendation. On Tuesday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the son of Cuban immigrants, made comments about the island saying they have to get new people in charge in Havana. He wants it to be him. They do not have to get new people in charge in Havana. Everybody there loves the government and the leadership. I mean, not everybody. There's some people who are like, fuck this. Let's just go capitalist already. I hate this so much. I'm so tired of the blockade. There's some people like that. But it is a very, very, very shockingly small amount of people. Most people, I think out of every, I probably talked to 100 people. It actually talked to. I would say 2 people I talked to felt that way. So it's 2% of the population feels that way. If we're to use that as a sample, which probably isn't, perfect, but it's very, very, very few people. Meanwhile, Pentagon officials told lawmakers there are no plans to invade Cuba, even as they described it as a long-standing security concern. Yeah, I bet there's no plans because you're getting your fucking ass kicked in Iran. How you can't? With what? You're sending everything to Iran and losing. Cuban officials have continued to blame U.S. sanctions for the country's economic hardships, while analysts say the government is facing mounting pressure from ongoing blackouts, shortages of basic goods, and growing public frustration. Okay, so that's what's going on there. Now, the reality is, yes, as the article said, you are only allowed to stay at a few hotels in Cuba if you were staying in a hotel. This is correct. This is on the state.gov website. You can see here, this is the U.S. Department of State. They give you a list. So here are all of the prohibited accommodations. These are all the places you cannot stay. Remember, this is a place a quarter the size of California that does, they get tourism, obviously, but they're not a wealthy place. Here are all the places you cannot stay on the island. Wait until we get to, this is Havana. Here's all the places you cannot stay in Havana. These are hotels you cannot stay at in Havana. We're still in Havana, by the way. We're still in Havana. There. Now, imagine you don't know anybody in Cuba. You don't have connections. You need to find a place to stay. 600 people are coming as part of this convoy. And these are all the places you can't stay at. Right? Yeah, a lot of these people did have to stay at 5-star hotels. They did. I didn't because I went with a group that has connections on the ground in Cuba. But a lot of these people who were invited to go with code pink, etc., they had like no options for where to stay. So that is true. That is true that they had to stay there. And that is because of the U.S. government. And let's just keep going past Havana. This is another area, right? Matanzas, sorry. Look at that. Look at all the places you cannot stay. It's crazy. Cuba is not a big place. Cuba is not a big place. All right. Imani posted this list? Yes, exactly. So some people did have to stay there. That is correct. That is not a lie. Now, and again, places were booked up. Everybody was scrambling. An influx of 600 people, the exact same dates on the island. You can imagine that it got competitive and difficult. There's also, you can see recommendations from travel groups for Americans. What do you do? How does this work? Prohibited hotels. The U.S. government publishes a list of hotels that American travelers are barred for. You have to stay at private enterprise. Private enterprise on the island only accounts for 20% of their overall economy, which I'll show you when we actually talk to a businessman in Cuba. So only privately owned lodging options that are authorized by the U.S. government are allowed, right? And it's hard. It's hard to find. Rates can be between $150 to $200 per night. I don't know where this $2,500 a night thing's coming from. I have no clue where that came from. I don't think these people were... I know some of these people, and I can tell you they could not afford $2,500 a night for a hotel. I'm guessing they saw like one suite on a sold out night that was like a mega suite was $2,500 or something. That's not real. Very, very interesting. So yes, that is what's going on with that story. So that story, a lot of mistruth. Isra, not with that convoy. Those people did have to stay in those hotels. $2,500 a night is not what they were paying for them. But yes, and it is because of the U.S. government. So where did we stay? We stayed at a place called the MLK Center, which is a Christian nonprofit organization, and they were awesome. So that is because the group we went with was organized, our brigade was organized by the People's Forum, and Manolo from the People's Forum has been going to Cuba so much, it seems like everybody in Havana knows this person. Like, people are like, you're an honorary Cuban, you've been here so much. The Code Pink people also, I will say, the federal government knew them and was like, you are honorary Cubans, you are honorary Cuban sisters, like, thank you for coming so much. These are real activists who go so much that the people in Cuba know them, that the government in Cuba knows them and thanks them. So our group, yes, was staying at the MLK Center, which is a Christian nonprofit that hosts a lot of socialists when they come to town. All right. So Manolo win. We love Manolo. Manolo's the GOAT. If you're in New York, People's Forum's awesome. And they were very, very nice. They prepared all of our meals for us, which we had to do, by the way, because we had a visa that was in support of the Cuban people, which means you can't give money to Cuba. So they made all of our meals for us. That's why they made all of our meals for us. And you can't like go shopping regularly. You can only bring back like art supplies, I think, and reading materials, educational materials. It's a very, very, very limited visa, which also explains why they try to catch you at the border so much. Border Patrol will catch you at the border and do all these weird interview tactics to try to get you to admit that you violated the conditions of your visa. That's also why you bring a burner phone, because they confiscate your phone sometimes to try to find evidence that you have violated the terms of your visa. Because to go in support of the Cuban people is so specific what you are allowed to do. And tourism visas are very heavily restricted. So that's what's going on there. Code Pink, I'm not sure what their explicit politics are other than just like anti-war. But I can tell you they're affiliated with a lot of socialist groups, and I'm a socialist, and I respect Code Pink. I think they do good work. Sometimes they do kooky things, like they thanked Marjorie Taylor Greene for not being a Zionist, but we all know like Marjorie Taylor Greene is like just like a weird conservative freak. Like she's probably anti-Zionist because she's also anti-Semitic. So they're not perfect. They're definitely not an explicitly Marxist-Leninist org, but they are nice ladies who care about people, you know. And that's they do good work with donation and anti-imperialism stuff. There's really sometimes they're good people. Yeah, I get happy when I see Code Pink somewhere. I'm like, oh, Code Pink. I took a picture. I'll show you guys. I took a picture of Code Pink at the airport when we got there. Yeah, they thank Marjorie Taylor Greene for being not anti-war but anti-Zionist, and I'm like, okay, all right, that was wild. So they're not perfect, but you know. You think some people in Code Pink are definitely Marxist-Leninists? I suspect that as well. But that's not like what the org presents as, you know? Yeah. That lady with the Code Pink, the older one, she's everywhere. She doesn't rest. The one with like the kind of blonde blondish gray, short hair. She's kind of like small and skinny. Yeah, she's everywhere. Code Pink was included with PSL in the federal subpoena. Yep, as was Chirla. So Chirla, Code Pink, and PSL are all being targeted aggressively by the federal government right now. Medea, yes. Okay, so another headline I saw that I was like, oh, is this one? So a lot of people were talking about how there was backlash on the island. Everyone was mad we were there. This could not be further from the truth. People were stopping us on the street to thank us. People were like, oh my God, I'm so happy you're here. Oh my God, thank you. So why do people think this? And this, by the way, is my delegation in this picture. I had one of these shirts on. I'm sitting just off to the side down here, okay? This was my delegation. Yeah. This is Sol, who's part of the Korean diaspora group I was telling you guys about. And these are some members of PYM, the Palestinian Youth Movement, who came with us, etc. These are actual Cubans. These two people are actual Cubans from the MLK Center who came with us. And they're part of the Young Communist League, I think. So these are actual Cubans. Yeah, so why are they saying that there was backlash against this when there wasn't at all? Well, it's because there's one person, Cuban journalist Yaoni Sanchez. And she does part-time live in Havana. She said that Cuba was being treated like a theme park and that those visiting the island in support of the government should take their ideological tourism elsewhere. Well, she's the director of a digital newspaper called 14 y Medio. And she has been talking about how mad she was at all these people coming. And this has led people to be like, international visit sparks controversy. It didn't. It did not spark controversy. They found one fucking lady that we're going to talk about in a second to say she didn't like it. When I tell you, like, everybody on the island, even the people who weren't hardcore communists, were like, thank you. And I'm going to tell you, their main goal, they were very, very grateful for the aid, very obviously. The main thing they were grateful for is ideological, actually. It's solidarity. Even if they're not super hardcore communists, Cuba is an island about internationalism and solidarity. And you see that in how their government functions, which we'll get into. Their whole thing as Cubans is, we care about the world. No one is free if other people are hurting or oppressed. And the thing about Cuba is if you need anything and you ask Cuba, they'll send someone to help you. If you write to Cuba and you're like, I need a doctor, they'll send a doctor to help you. If you write to Cuba and you're like, I need a teacher, I can't read, they will send a teacher to you. You could live in the middle of nowhere on a continent halfway across the planet from them. They will send a teacher to teach you how to read if you ask them. Like, these are the nicest people on the planet. They care so much about international solidarity, and they feel so left alone because of the blockade. Yeah, we're going to talk about the government. Yeah, she is paid by the government to say that. Excellent detective skills, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you the evidence. So for them, the biggest thing was to know that they're not alone. To see us all showing up and be like, okay, like, people in the rest of the world care about international solidarity too. And what they asked us was to go back and to tell people like you the truth, because they're like, what you guys see in the media is not correct. Can you please, this is what they begged of us, just go back and tell them what you saw here. Just go back and tell them what we told you. Just go back and tell them what it's actually like here, because people are not reporting the truth. They tell you, oh, it's horrible, it's on the brink of collapse, everyone is mad, everything's falling apart. And they're like, no, it's not. Like, we don't love the blockade. Yeah, it's hard, but like, this too shall pass. And we've dealt with hard things before. And we're standing strong. And that's it. That's what they want you to know. That is what the Cuban people thanked us for doing. Just being there so we could tell you that. Yes, U.S. propaganda is evil incarnate. Exactly. So this was it. This is all they wanted. And they were so happy for us to be that way. So the same thing they did with Gaza, and that's why they didn't allow international journalists in. And we're going to talk about that too, because the Cubans care so much about Gaza and Palestine. We brought the Palestinian Youth Movement with us, and they were just talking about Palestine nonstop. And like I said earlier, when they were talking about not being able to give Americans their COVID vaccines, they were like, our heart fucking breaks. Like, our heart breaks that you guys couldn't get these vaccines and you're dying. Our heart breaks for the Palestinian people. Like, they are so international, and that's a thing you see over and over and over again when you talk about to them when you're talking about anything with Cuba. They're very world-oriented. And not to give it away, but I'll say it again on our education episode. When we visited a classroom of first graders, we asked them if they had any questions for us. The only question they asked was, how do you say the word world in English? And I was just like, I'm going to fucking sob like a baby in the background, because this is their ideology from an early age. They think about the world. They think about the planet. Like, they think internationally. I know, I'm like crying. I'm just like, it's an ugly word. I'm so sorry. It's world. But yeah. So It did not spark controversy in Cuba. It only sparked controversy in the United States with two groups of people: weirdo fucking Trumpoid conservatives and those type of loser leftists who get on the internet and complain about shit all day long and don't do anything. Right? Right. So yeah, those weirdos. Planet. Planet. That's what I should have said. Yeah, world is a pretty hard word. Yeah. So let's talk about this chick, Ioani Sanchez, who's out here telling everybody that, oh, go away. Why would you do this? Blah, 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 blah. Well, she is funded by the Bacardi Foundation. And you're like, Bacardi rum? Oh, let me get the chat back. Yeah, Bacardi rum. Now, why might Bacardi rum be interested in Cuba? I don't know, probably because of Cuban rum, right? Cuban rum. So the multi-million-dollar financing of the anti-Cuban industry in times of Trump. Here's a great article. Millionaire CIA covers. Let's see if we can find that Bacardi. Okay, so here we go. The Bacardi Foundation is the benefactor arm of the liquor company. Yes. And they were a decisive part in drafting Title III of the Helms-Burton Act, which is part of the United States' fucked up economic policies against Cuba that we'll get into more detail about when we talk about our sanctions, etc. So the Bacardi Foundation has received in these years from USAID at least $288,000 for projects relating to Cuba. I want you to know, I'm pretty sure most Cubans earn $3 a month. That's how the currency converts. So think about how much propaganda you can buy in Cuba for $288,000 when their currency conversion means that they earn the equivalent of $3 on the island. It received $600,000 of the $3.8 million that USAID distributed in the year that this article was written, which was 2020. So Bacardi rum is paying that woman to say bad things about communism, basically. That is what they are paying her for. So they are using it to finance counter-revolutionary campaign Cuba Decide, dedicated to torpedoing the 2017-2018 electoral process in Cuba. It also distributes dollars of subversion sprinkled with Bacardi to the digital medium 14E Medio. That's the woman that we were talking about, run by the mercenary Ioani Sanchez. Okay, so she is taking USAID money to say this. So that is the controversy that was being sparked. A banana daiquiri republic. Yeah, you've heard of Banana Republic. Now, have you heard of Banana Daiquiri Republic? Cromwell, great edition. So that's who's saying that. And then if you want something to read about the Helms-Burton Act, I do have this link here. The SCOTUS blog talks about this act and what it is, but we will get into more details about it, basically. It basically has to do with property rights and Americans being able to sue for property that they think should have been theirs when we the communists, I'm thinking like a Cuban, kicked out all of the plantation owners from Cuba. Okay, so that's part of Bacardi. Bacardi was doing business, right, under the U.S.-backed dictator in Cuba before the revolution. Now, there is also this article here that I think is really interesting from the Cuba Solidarity Campaign. Bob Oram reports this from 2014, the real history behind the Bacardi label. And, you can take a look at this. Somebody said, my boyfriend wanted to go on vacation to Cuba because he loved it when he went to high school with everything going on right now. He doesn't think it's a good idea. I mean, look, tourism is a thing that finances their economy. It's probably fine. It's just a matter of if Donald Trump decides he wants to bomb Cuba or some shit. I don't know. The man's fucking unpredictable. Mm-hmm. We communists are one people. So, this is what's kind of going on here. This Havana Club label in the United States in 1996. Havana Club Holdings filed suit against Bacardi for trademark infringements. The case was initially going in one way, and then the judge made a ruling based on existing law, and then the Helms-Burton Act had just been introduced, and Bacardi was deploying their lobbying and legal clout to defend themselves while also claiming to have bought the trademark in 1997, because they were doing like trademark infringement. So this is a whole story about this, and it tells you basically why Bacardi is so interested in what's going on in Cuba. Okay? Rum. Cuba's known for rum. Bacardi makes rum. This is kind of pretty common sense, but I'll give you guys a tiny URL link for this if you want to save it to read later. Just the gist of it that you need to know is Bacardi is a compromised and compromising interest in Cuban affairs because of the nature of their business. So I'll give you guys this for future reading if you want. And Cuba Solidarity is a good website in general. They have a lot of good info that you guys can look into for more. But we haven't even gotten to my visit yet, so I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. Although, again, I am expecting for the stream to go late today and probably this week. All right. Now, what is the truth? I have a video I'm going to show you. That is the truth. I'm going to show you 2 videos right now. One is just like a montage, and I'm just going to talk over it really fast. So I'm sorry, I'm new to this. I don't really know how to do it. And the other is going to be farming. So we're going to take a look at this. I have all my, look at all my content. Look, I have it broken up by day for all of us, and it's organized so we can watch all the videos that I took for you. All right. The first video I'm going to show you is going to be just a compilation of some general video footage and pictures that I took while I was there. It's not going to be particularly interesting. It's just to get your feet wet, to kind of give you an overview. So here we go. And there's videos and pictures. I have a combo of both. Sorry the audio is weird on it, just because there's some videos with the audio and there's some not. Here's me in Cuba. So basically we came with this brigade and we saw Code Pink at the airport, right? This is the place we stayed. This is the Martin Luther King Center. This is the Christian Center, and as you can see, they have a lot of solar energy, right? So the idea that all of the people coming were taking away power, the place we stayed, they weren't all run on solar, but they had a lot of solar, right? Also, we're going to talk about the July 26th movement for those of you who don't know when we talk about the Revolution Day, but this is the place we stayed, and this was our little brigade. And so we saw other members of the convoy at the airport, but people all came in different times within like a 48-hour period, basically, because flights to Cuba are very limited. They had to restructure all of their flights because they have to be able to refuel off of the island. So we had to fly to Miami, and then from Miami, we flew to Cuba. So I'll show you more things and we'll talk about them as they pop up here. So these are some people who came on our brigade, and I'll talk more in detail about the different orgs that came. And we took classes. We took a bunch of classes. We were there. We learned a bunch from the people. They taught us so much, and I'll talk to you. Well, I'll actually show you some of the actual classes. They had a little dog and a cat that lived there. And did you guys see the gay pride flag? Cuba is the gay communist that your parents warned you about. Look at this one. Look at that. It's like a little gay Martin Luther King Christian Center here, right? Yeah, China's trying to make, I think, half of their energy being solar by 2028. So again, these are just the non-specific pictures and videos that I'm showing you to get a vibe. There were solar panels there. People that were on the streets using fuel, they had their bicycles out, obviously, but also they had regular transportation. It wasn't nearly as catastrophic as you think. I mean, it's bad that they can't regularly access fuel, but it wasn't a total disaster. And they have solar panels on roofs. People are employing solar energy wherever they can. So, oh, sorry, I've showed this twice, but this guy, I took a really close-up picture of him. I would ask people, I'd be like, can I take a picture of you? And they'd be like, yeah. And then he gave me the shaka, and I was like, sick. But they were installing solar panels all over the place. Yeah, so this is a little neighborhood. We got to walk around and talk to people. Yeah, I can do that. Hold on. Is this better? Does that sound better, or is it still bad? Better? Okay, good. So yeah, this is just some general shots of the neighborhoods. You know, people tell you, oh, there's garbage. There's definitely garbage around some places. There's Lily. I love Lily. If you guys follow Lily. Lily's actually a red diaper baby. Lily's parents are communists. So Lily posts on Instagram mostly now, but Lily's really cool, and that's kind of who I hung out with on most of the trip. All right? So definitely recommend following Lily. Yeah, the cars. I was obsessed with the cars. I kind of did a car guy move and took a bunch of pictures of random cars. Yeah, Lily Eagle. Yeah. This was when we kind of went out of the city limits and we went to the farm one day.
Right now, that's me with like brown. Like this is like what I own, especially because I.
And it was so fun talking to people on the bus because we would just talk about Marxist literature and stuff. Lily used to have a TikTok. I think she might have deleted it. The cars are visually pleasing, but this is just to kind of show you the streets, and you know, this is an area that's not super in the city center. This is a little more rural. There's also this guy Phil on the trip that I really liked a lot. Phil's getting his doctorate in Black Marxist studies, I think. And it was really cool talking to Phil, him. But yeah, this is just kind of some more general footage of the area. I'm trying to set the vibe. I don't know. I'm trying to take you on the journey. Set the vibe, right? But yeah, so just halfway through this, is this what you were imagining, or is this way more normal than you were thinking? Because it was way more normal than I was thinking. I read all the news and I was like, oh, everybody's dying. And then you get here and you're like, oh, they're just like rightfully annoyed and their showers are cold because they don't have power to heat up their water. And the power outages are obnoxious. But, you know, and so you read the news and it's like, Cuba's on the brink of collapse. And then you see these like disaster content creators who are like, Cuba has fallen. And you get there and you're like, do they know that? Do the Cubans know they've fallen? Do the Cubans know they've fallen? Because I don't think they know. And we were not in the tourist area. None of this, some of this later, we go to a tourist area for a little bit, but none of this is in a tourist area. This is just like where the normal Cubans are. Hey bro, you've fallen. Did you know? Did you know you've fallen? Yeah, we had some Puerto Rican communists on our trip too, which I'll talk about in a second too. This is our interpreter, Adelso. He was great. I loved him. Yeah. If you see content creators say Cuba has fallen, maybe just be like, they haven't. And it's hard because you want to push the severity of the situation. You want people to know the blockade is inhumane and it is cruel. But you also want people to know this is not a fallen country. They are surviving despite the cruelty, but they should not have to. It is imperative ethically that we lift the blockade. It is imperative to end the blockade. But the Cuban people are resilient as hell. And that's what's really important to get them to go. Did everyone on a ventilator die? I did not see anything like that. Nobody at the hospital I was at said anything like that, so I'm not sure. This was the waterfront we went to. We talked to some people here. Yeah, Cuba has fallen in love with the Nuestra America convoy. We're dating now. I tried to show some streets that had garbage on them. I'm not sure if you guys noticed. This is the touristy area. So now we're in the touristy area here. They have taller buildings and stuff. Now, this is really important. They were so happy we were there that the government invited us to a formal meeting in the place where their parliament meets. So hella polycule, holy polycule. Yeah, we had a very gay polycule relationship with Cuba. So this is where their government meets. And the president came, and we were in this room where their parliament meets with the president. And it was insane. So when people are like, backlash on the island, I'm like, who? Not the people in the streets, not the government. They were all very, 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 very happy. So yeah, we were in the same room with the Cuban president because of our aid work. And there's multiple delegations here. I saw my TikTok op here. We didn't make eye contact, so that was cool. This guy was from Pastors for Peace. Oh, remember when I was like, that's our delegation. That was Seoul. Their Seoul. That was us in the picture. Oh, on the hospital claim. I'm going to take a look at that. This is me outside afterwards, being very happy. And look. Who's that? Just an internet leftist and the person I got canceled for voting for. That's Claudia de la Cruz. Claudia de la Cruz was there and she gave a speech. Not Danny North Korea, no. It was the other one, Christian. I was like, did you learn anything? Because there was this point where the president was like, they do everything. They call us dictators, blah, 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 blah. And I was staring in the back of his head like, are you learning? You voted for Claudia. Yeah, Claudia was there. I was like, I have to take a picture with you because I got violently canceled for voting for you. But yeah, awesome. This is my president, Claudia. She's great. So then the next day, they had an outdoor ceremony for us to welcome us and show us like traditional music and performances from Cuba. So then we all went to this thing outdoors the next day, and a lot of media was there. The European convoy to Cuba was massive. That's where a lot of the Italians were. There were so many people there from Europe. Yeah, the Butcher of Pyongyang was there. Yeah. These are the people who gave me the paper, but mostly just look at this belt buckle. That's where I was like, I gotta get a video of your belt buckle. Belt buckle. Love them. Oh. And then I dropped my camera, I guess. I don't know. Okay, so I learned who Kneecap was. You guys were like, Kneecap, Kneecap, Kneecap. Is Kneecap going? And I was like, I don't know what that is. Probably not. I don't think so. They did. Yeah, it turns out they were the same as us. This is Chris Smalls on stage also in the Fuck Ice shirt. This is the guy who unionized the Amazon warehouses. And I will tell you, I did not necessarily enjoy Kneecap's music, not my kind of music, but the vibes were so immaculate, I did come out of mosh retirement. It was me, a guy from San Francisco who was there with the Chattanooga, Tennessee delegation, and this Italian communist who I'm obsessed with, who's awesome. All of us were like, we're doing it. We're doing it. Not all together, at different times. I was going back to them. So we did come out of mosh retirement for Kneecap, and I will tell you, it was enjoyable. So this concert, though, was not private. This was a public concert in a public space for the Cuban people. Most of the people at the concert were Cuban. So most of them were Cuban, and they were loving it. And before Kneecap played were Cuban artists, because Cuba has a really big hip-hop scene. And we'll talk about this more when we talk about their government structure. But the way their government and education system works, whatever you're good at, the government will pay you to do, basically. So if you go to art school, if you're good at making art, you get a guaranteed job after college at a certain level. So they have literally like hip hop artists, like painters, whatever, writers, whatever. It's very, very important to their culture. So Cuba has a thriving hip hop scene, and their hip hop artists who are like government subsidized, like we pay you to make art, were up before this. And that's what USAID tried to infiltrate. USAID tried to infiltrate a while back when they started that whole campaign with the fake Twitter they brought there, Zunzuneo. And they put on a fake music festival full of Cuban hip-hop artists, but all the Cuban hip-hop artists got on stage and were like, yeah, and we hate communism and we want to overthrow our government, right, guys? But it didn't work. They thought this would spark a spontaneous revolution, and it did not work at all. So, but they did that because Cuba has a huge and thriving hip-hop scene. Yeah. I loved this grandma. Everyone was like, who's Tia? Is that? Somebody was like, you gotta get her out of there. She's like fully in the middle filming on the stage. Loved Cuba. I said this already, but my partner in New York was like, are you on communist birthright? And I was like, first of all, fuck you. Second of all, yes. Yeah, that's the American dream they claim we had. Yep. It's in Cuba. So that was the overview, right? That's our little overview video of what was happening there. Communist birthright, I know. It's my anti-Zionist Jewish partner in New York whose parents were also communists. They were like, oh, you're on communist birthright? I'm like, I'm gonna fucking hate you. Cryptic Demon, we're around an hour into it. We're around an hour into it, but it's going to go long today, so stick around. We're going to keep getting into it. We took like some news that was posted about Cuba from the liberals and the Republicans alike. And we talked about how it was incorrect and what actually happened. And we've just showed the first video, which is the general vibe overview. And now we're going to get into some next info. Yeah, we're going to talk about Cuba for 2 weeks. I've got 2 weeks. Your family left because of the blockade. Your pictures are surreal to me. Yeah. I mean, when I tell you Cuba has like persisted and persevered, they really have. They really, really, really have. And again, I was not staying in a touristy area. I went out to the country. I was in the city. And it's not to say that they don't struggle with the blockade. They definitely struggle with the blockade, and they'll tell you that. But this idea that they are a country on the brink of collapse, that is a myth put forward by the U.S. government. They are not on the brink of collapse. And if we would leave them the fuck alone, they would be thriving, right? We'd have Havana Hatton, just like they have Pyong Hatton and DPRK. So, let's get into the next thing I want to show you, which is the farming video. So I didn't really have a full day to talk about farming, so I figured we just kind of plug it in here to give you guys kind of a general idea of the farming situation. I have a video that's also similarly a compilation of us going to the farm. So in Cuba, they have state-run big farms, but if you're a small farmer, you can also have a small like worker collective style farm, and that's what we went to. And people had different plots of land that were theirs on the farm where they could just grow their own food. You're able to, give the food to the community, but also you can sell extras. And that's how it works. 20% of Cuba's economy is private enterprise. So you make things to fulfill things like ration cards. Cuba still has ration cards. They say that since the blockade has gotten worse, their ration books used to be like this thick of free stuff they would get. And it's gotten like smaller. So some of the Cubans are like, I want the blockade to end just so my ration card can go back to the way it used to be when I was younger. My ration book. But you fulfill things for rations and then you can sell the extras basically after. So bake, clean, or craft. I think you should start a bake and then craft while it's in the oven. That's what I think. So the kulaks, not kulaks, not kulaks. So let's take a look at this farming video of this small independent one we went to. It is full of communist propaganda. This was on the outside when we pulled up, right? And they actually, when we got there, they just got an award from their community. This is the sign. It's a socialist farming collective. There's a Delso flipping you off if you're British. And it's very, very, everything's about the revolution. And these are signs they have everywhere, right? So for those, this is Fidel Castro. This is Raul Castro, his brother who became president afterwards. And this is the current president, Diaz-Canel, who we met with. And I'll actually show you his speech on a different day. La CCS, Cuba Socialista, they're everywhere. This is very much a socialist farm. Oh, look, there's our terrorist daughter, whomst I love. There she is. So if she starts streaming, you guys have to go give her love. Favorite terrorist daughter. She's awesome. So this is just some pictures from the farm. There was a cow. The terror princess, she's great. I love her.
Vloggy video.
And this is me being awkward. That's Jorge on TikTok. If you follow Jorge, I've never seen Jorge's content before. Look at, they have cool shirts for the Korean Liberation Leagues too. People Summit Korea. And this is what some of the farms look like. So we went to different people's plots of lands all around this big farming area. And we helped plant things and we helped weed things. So on one person's we planted, on another person's we weeded. You saw his video today? Oh, was it good? I haven't seen it.
So they're waiting for también Pepito.
He was in my base group, but we didn't talk much. We just did our little base group meetings together.
20, what are the... beds. Yeah, beds, yeah. 20 beds. Lettuce. I'm not sure about the other fruits. Beets. Okay.
Lo que ven así con los palitos, con los plásticos son trampas de colores. ¿Okay?
Los palitos son trampas. ¿Cómo? They're traps, I guess, for bugs.
Plástico, vea, el plástico que tiene,
So
se le echa grasa para que los insectos se le peguen y no lleguen a la planta.
So they have like grease or to stick for them to stick?
Dorian sapiens, yes.
Bugs.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about them in our government day.
Y en aquella parte que vemos ahí, donde yo trabajo.
The wind's loud, I know, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so we planted these little guys. This is what we did. The party.
Is there more?
Tomorrow on Weapons Wednesday, we're talking about a tank. So get ready. A tank that helped them win the Cuban Revolution. The weather was great. It was cooler than in LA. It was hotter in LA than there. It was like in the 70s. Not too bad. Not too humid, no. I just want to say one of the craziest things is just seeing, like, I don't know how to explain this. All of these people are communists. Everyone you've seen is a communist. Everyone on the street is a communist. All the people at this farm, they're all communists. And the government, obviously, they're all communists. So, which you know, but it's like, seeing it feels different, right? There are billions of communists on this planet. Our ideology is not fringe. It is not lunatic. There are billions of us. And communists are not this bizarre liberal art school kind of thing, right? These people are communists, and they are living this in practice. And one of the things that really like brought me almost to tears is when we were at that outdoor meeting I showed you earlier that they set up for us. They played a video that was like a montage of all of the different groups coming around the world to give Cuba aid. And all of the European communists had hammers and sickles stickers on their aid boxes that they delivered. And just seeing that, being like, holy shit, we're at a government-sponsored event. And first of all, capitalists are trying to kill the world. Capitalists are trying to kill the planet. Capitalists are killing Iran right now. Capitalists are strangling Cuba. Capitalists kidnapped the president of Venezuela. Capitalists are letting people in the United States go hungry, go homeless, go without medical access, ration insulin. Capitalists are quite literally murdering everyone on the planet. And communists are trying our best to keep them alive. Without the infrastructure, without the support. We are coming from all around the world. We are showing up to keep people alive. And seeing all of those aid boxes come in with hammers and sickles on them, I'm going to cry again thinking about it. It brought me to fucking tears, right? Because this is what we're about. This is what we're about. And seeing a government acknowledge that and say, they said explicitly, we know you're not your government. We know you are not your government. The American people have never been their government. The European people have never been their governments. And you're like us, you're communist, like we're together. I was like losing it, crying, watching that, because this is what we want. And you feel so crazy talking to Westerners all day. And it's like you want to hit them over the head and you just want to say, I'm trying to give you a house and healthcare, you fucking idiot. I'm trying to give you a good life. I'm trying to give you a quality of life where you never have to worry about sleeping on the street. Like, I'm trying to give you fresh food to eat. I'm trying to give you a better world. Fucking take it. And it feels crazy. You feel like you're losing your mind, right? So just to see all that was so validating. To see other people be like, yes, we know. That is what we are trying to do too. And we will always stand with you. And that's the thing about Cuba. Cuba will always stand with you. If you were a socialist, if you were a communist, anywhere in the world, Cuba will stand with you. If you're a person who's not politically literate but needs help, Cuba will stand with you. And we'll see that when we talk about their literacy campaigns. We'll see that when we talk about their medical campaigns. But yeah, it really, really brought me to tears. And it is very, very fucking powerful seeing that in action. Right? We're going to keep watching the farming video. It's a little long. All of the signs. Comrade hug. I'm not sure about immigrating there. I'm not sure how that works. Sorry about the wind. I know the wind. More selfie. In the video. No, it's okay. I just want to let you know. Imagine walking around and everyone just gets it. Yup. Okay, good. I won't worry. I don't want to, photobomb there. It's not a photobomb. Other people are allowed to exist in the world. Yeah, I was in heaven. Yeah. Oh, there's Sabrina, for the person who's a Miami comrade in PSL. Other people are allowed to exist in the world. Sorry, it's a mix of pictures and videos. I tried to turn the pics into, they were live pics, so I tried to turn them into videos, but I didn't have time. So they're planting all the seeds.
They plant seeds one by one, and then they move them over there.
Bell bell! Yay! Good luck!
In the morning, they plant, and then in the afternoon, they pass them through to the field.
Nursery, yeah.
Right now, they're planting
Yay, Real Tree Barbie! I'm excited for you.
Garlic takes the longest.
usually it takes like 3 days. To the spot, you know. I do that sound effect. The period for lettuce to flourish is around 3 days.
Bueno, acá tenemos
We have another area here.
una
Never been to California.
You should come.
When I can. Have that, you know.
la deja así para sacar su propia semilla. ¿Ves?
That's a farmer, and that's his list, you know, like, but he's part of the cooperative. Yeah, so that's what he owns.
I don't know if you could hear that, but that's a farmer on his land and he's part of the cooperative, is what he
It's a
said.
very rocky soil, so it's kind of difficult to.
Él en este caso tiene animales, ¿ves? Tiene bueyes,
Yeah, animals,
ese estiércol lo recoge y se lo aplica en
and
su
with
Raccoon PSYOP, I would say PSL over CPUSA because PSL is explicitly Marxist-Leninist, but if PSL isn't super active in your area, look to see if FRSO is there too. FRSO was also there. Some of their members came with Code Pink and stuff, but they were all in their FRSO shirts too. We didn't have any FRSO in our delegation, but I saw them there and I was like, ah, hey, love you guys.
Yeah, shit. I didn't want to be vulgar, right? But anyway, the cow shit is used for that, for the proper, manure, that's the word.
Virgo is right. CPUSA is recovering from embracing liberalism. They're not quite there yet. They're working on it. I got a little too eager. I recommended them for a week, and then I was like, they're not there yet. You know, Comrade Thuggin, I'm honestly not sure. I wasn't really paying attention to where we were going. I was just like, okay, wow, and looking out the windows. But I could probably look at the like stamps on where I took these. You know, like the location stamps, and pull it up later. His land, mechanically meaning the co-op. So everybody gets like a little plot of land that's like their land. You know what I mean? In the co-op, and then they all work it together, and then they do common tasks too. So then they get theirs, and then they get, like, they work together for the common areas of the land, like that. Yeah. Oh, also I wanted to say, they have to do a lot of this by hand when it could be done with machine, because the blockade prevents them from getting the proper machines and the parts to repair them. Lots of times they can get a machine or a device they need, but they can't get any parts to repair them, so it's just not a good use of money. They're all bougie landowners. It's the commons. It's the commons, exactly. Raccoon PSYOP, yes, it's the commons. Yay, Moonflight. Awesome. People have done a lot. That was me weeding. What is this? Microplastics recovering. They tricked a bunch of baby leftists. Microplastics, more important than that, they tricked me, a 40-year-old who should know better. I love that my Fell for It Again award, though, isn't Democratic Socialist. It's just CPUSA. So embarrassing. I'm so sorry. Never trust me about CPUSA. I'm going to be too nice about them. Okay. So I wanted to show you that. Now, I want to talk to you about our brigade. Everybody that you saw in those videos, who they were and where they came from, and give you a little bit of their content that they filmed on the trip as well. Oh, time to plug in the lights. Time to plug in the lights. Okay, we're back. So, the youth brigade that I was on, even though I am almost 40, Let Cuba Live, that was everybody you saw in the green shirts with the neon writing when we went to functions out together. So there were some free agents there, like me, Lily, Jorge. We were not necessarily invited because of our group affiliations. We were invited because we have social media presences, and we were there to document it. So what I'm doing with you, this is why I was invited there, to share it with you guys. I'm going to make TikTok videos. I'm going to do the whole thing. Now, another group of people that came, no, I got another light. It was so broken. I just got another light. People's Forum was there. That's who did a lot of the coordinating for the trip. So People's Forum is out of New York, and they have some crossover with PSL, but they're like a Venn diagram, you know? So a lot of these orgs are Venn diagrams. So when I tell you I work with a lot of these orgs, like, we put on events that FRSO was at, that helps put on too, right? I'm at things with PSL, like, all the time. And that's why I can tell you, like, I work on the Vote Socialist campaign. 4 out of the 5 candidates we're running are PSL candidates. Like, I work with them a lot. So I like these people. I like all these people. I think they're good. I think some of these people get a really bad rep on the internet, and I think it's backed by a lot of weird anarchist sentiment. You know, I like FRSO and I like PSL. And People's Forum, I like them too. I've been in New York. I've gone to People's Forum events. I like them. Claudia de la Cruz was on the board at People's Forum, right? So that's like where she comes from. And so People's Forum, if you're not familiar, I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of the info about everybody who is on this with us, since we're still in our overview day. So this is the People's Forum website. You can check them out. If you're in New York, you can go there. They have a bookstore. They do events there. And it's just really good. And they have like events like figure drawing night, you know, printmaking, Arab Tech Collective, and you can hear lectures. And their monthly theme is beware of attempts to discredit Venezuela's election and launch regime change, right? So, Miss Silva, last Saturday you woke up early to go door knocking for the Vote Socialist campaign. It was a great experience. You'll definitely be back Saturday. Yay! I got to do some more door knocking this weekend. I got to get back out there. We're in our trying to get people to vote thing. You've been going to the People's Forum because I recommended them to you. Yay! Okay, great. Yes. They also share a bunch of their Zoom lives. Their events are really, 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 really great. Yes, I agree. So I love the People's Forum, and I really support them. They also are currently trying to raise money because they bought a building. So they wouldn't get evicted from their building. They raised money to buy a building, so they become a permanent fixture in New York, but it needs to be renovated. So they have to spend like $2 million renovating it because New York City. So I was talking to them, and I'm like, we should do a live streaming campaign. Like, maybe we can get together like 30 people with social media presence, do a month of it, and we each do like a full live stream day trying to raise money for the People's Forum to get this money to fix up their space or whatever. So, you know, I pitched that idea to them. I'm not sure how into that they are, but you might see that in the future, because I do think they do a really important service. I was actually talking to someone who was super liberal pilled. They were fighting with me on my TikTok one day. And they were like, this Marxist shit, this is like white people shit, like you should have voted for Kamala, blah, 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 blah. So I started talking to them, and they were like, basically saying that nobody who, sorry, I just saw a weird shadow. Nobody who looks like them would be into it. I was like, that's not true. And I was like, tell me about you. Like, who are you? I can find a Marxist like you that you will like to listen to. You don't have to listen to me. Because this is my thing I always tell people. You don't have to listen to me. If you don't want to listen to white people talk to you about politics, it's fine. You don't have to. That's the cool thing. There's billions of Marxist-Leninists on the planet, and guess what? Most of them aren't white. You can find a lot of people, right? Hey, you finally made it to a stream. Yay, welcome. We're doing a long stream today. So, you know, they were talking to me, and they were a black woman from the Bronx. But they were like a teenage girl. So they were like a black teenage feminine person from the Bronx. And I was like, Claudia de la Cruz at People's Forum. Claudia de la Cruz is from the Bronx. She is black. She's like, I think she was on the board at the time of People's Forum. Go to People's Forum, see what it's all about. And it was so cool getting to tell somebody that, like, oh, you're from the Bronx? Like, yeah, these people are, a lot of those people are from the Bronx. There's a whole Bronx contingency of people who go there regularly. So once you live with a cat, you start noticing shadows more? Yeah, probably. So I just think that was like really, really, really cool. Now, something interesting about the People's Forum. Okay, let's take a look at their posts. Ugh, this thing's so annoying. This sidebar.
No solamente por la paz.
Why? Like, how do you get this fucking sidebar to go away? I don't understand this. Why would they do this? Okay, here. And this thing never goes away, the notifications. All right, so this is Manolo from People's Forum, and this is what People's Forum posted. This was a speech Manolo gave at the kind of outdoor thing I showed you guys that was set up. The same thing that had the video that made me cry, right? Have you ever worked as a publisher or social media town crier or something? No, but I just do my normal job. I don't really do anything like that. I'd be open to it, but most of the Marxist-Leninists you've seen online aren't white. Yep, true. It's not a very white ideology. Liberalism is a very white ideology, right? Marxist-Leninism is a liberation ideology for people who've experienced imperialism. And guess what? Most of them are in the global south, and most of them aren't white.
Sino por cambiar el mundo. Queremos un mundo sin sanciones, sin bloqueos, sin genocidios. Queremos un mundo sin guerras contra el pueblo de Irán. Queremos un mundo donde Palestina sea libre, donde Puerto Rico sea libre, donde el pueblo saharaui sea libre. Nuestra lucha tiene que ser no solamente...
Did we watch it all the way through already? I lost track. I was reading chat.
por la paz, sino por cambiar el mundo. Queremos un mundo sin sanciones, sin bloqueo.
Okay, yeah. So that's what they posted. So I'm just going to kind of do this and like introduce you to all the orgs that went, show you a little bit of their social media and stuff. Also, this is really funny. So People's Forum is funded by a Chinese billionaire. You hear that about PSL a lot, and there is a Chinese billionaire who gives PSL some money sometimes. But I wanted to show you is just the final official group was the Colectiva Feminista from Puerto Rico. And I wanted to show you their website. I have it translated to English. Oops, here we go. This is them. And so we had some Puerto Ricans there from the feminist group in Puerto Rico. And they are very, very cool. And we had two of them there. And the Puerto Rican and Cuban struggles are very, very linked. Their flags are the same, but like inverted. That's how linked they are. And there's even a chant they would do that would basically say like Puerto Rico and Cuba, like two wings, same bird. So they're very, very interlinked together there with the Puerto Rican liberation struggle. Fork loves the DPRK. So yeah, this is what's going on there. Comrade Duggan, thank you for my subscription. We are anti-colonialists and internationalists. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of internationalism in Cuba. Cuba is a great example of internationalism in practice. Everything I told you that when we met children, like first graders, the first question they asked was, how do you say the world? Like, how do you say world in English? And that's how internationally minded these people are. So one of the things that I thought was really great too is getting to meet communists from all over the world, not in our group. Getting to meet the European convoy, getting to meet all the Italian communists who go hard, by the way, getting to meet the Spanish communists who are out. They were communists from all over the place, getting to meet the British communists, right? But internationalism is so a part of the Cuban tradition. So I actually have a video, and this was a really special thing we got to do. We got to meet with 3 people who had been part of the original Cuban Revolution. So in that 3, there was one man who was an ambassador to, I believe, Angola, to a country in Africa, and also had fought in the war in Angola, I believe. So he was like an ambassador in the revolutionary government, but he had also been a revolutionary before that. There was another man who had literally fought alongside Fidel Castro and Che Guevara in the revolution. And he was a wealth of knowledge. And there was also his wife, who had been a doctor, a revolutionary doctor during this time period as well. So I actually have a video on internationalism from these 3 people who we got to meet with and talk. Yeah, Victor Dreke. Yeah, exactly, Comrade Duggan. Yes. Mm-hmm. You did the reveal before I could, but yeah. No big deal, right? So I want to show you the video. So this isn't, I don't think Victor talks in this video if I remember correctly. I think it's his like friend who was the ambassador who also fought in the war. But I'll know when I pull it up. Also, I just want to tell you, Victor was so cool because some people were like, do you understand that like you're such an inspiration for like black communists, like everywhere kind of vibe. And he was like, I mean, yeah, that's great, but like we didn't just do this for black communists. Like we do this for every communist. We do this for white communists. We do this for mulatto communists, this term they use, you know. And he was like, you know, this is like all of our struggle together. Like he always brought it back to internationalism, which was so cool, you know. And I think it was really validating for a lot of the black comrades on our trip who, like some of you in the chat, said that they talked about this, how they spend so much time getting told that communism is for white people, that communism is a white people thing, or that looking down on identity politics, or thinking that class is a primary contradiction, or U.S. imperialism is a primary contradiction, makes them somehow not black. That's a thing they were all talking about, dealing with a lot. And so for him to say that, it just, I think, like really was affirming for a lot of the Marxists in the room, that you're not crazy for wanting a better world based on class struggle. You know, obviously your race has a huge amount to do with it, especially if you live in the United States where you experience so much racism. And in Cuba they did as well. But I think a lot of people felt very like touched by that. So I, as a white person, couldn't relate, but I know a lot of the black comrades were talking about that. So I just wanted to share that he said that in case that was something that was useful for you to hear as well. Again, I can't get a proper read on it as a white person, how meaningful that would be to a black Marxist, but other people thought it was important. So I'm going to share it. Share it with you. So let's watch this video.
Is one.
Oop. This is a video. Okay, so this is not Victor talking this one, but we will see Victor talk a bunch in other videos because I recorded a lot of him. So this is the man who served as the ambassador and did a lot of work in Africa as well, in the internationalism. So we were kind of talking to him about internationalism and how it's important. So.
Is one. La lucha de liberación no se puede desarrollar aisladamente. You cannot develop liberation struggle isolated. Los procesos sociales no pueden ser en una vitrina. Social processes cannot be within a glass case. Todos nosotros tenemos que estar conscientes que hay que unirse. We all should be aware and having the consciousness that we need to be united. Y trabajar juntos. And we need to work together. Porque uno a uno nos van liquidando. Because one by one they are liquidating us. Con el objetivo de que no seamos capaces de hacer un frente. And the objective is that we cannot create a common front. Que el enemigo tenga que dispersar su fuerza para luchar contra nosotros. Because if we have a front, the enemy has to disperse their forces. Nosotros pensamos que mientras que existan pueblos oprimidos, nadie está convencido de su libertad. And we think, what if there are oppressed peoples, no one can be convinced of his or her freedom. Hablaba de los palestinos. ¿Cómo podemos pensar que los palestinos son libres? We cannot think about freedom. They are not free. Se están cometiendo un genocidio. There is genocide against Palestine. ¿Cómo podemos pensar que se puede ser libre si están bombardeando a Iran?
I'll pause this and talk. Welcome, Raiders. Hi. You guys are coming in on day 1 of a 2-week recap of my trip to Cuba on the Nuestra America Convoy. And right now we're looking at some interviews with some Cuban revolutionaries talking about the importance of internationalism. So that's what you're walking in on right now. Welcome. Aw, thank you for the gifted subs, Brody. Yay. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
How can we think about being free if they are bombarding Iran? Y por ello, nuestra creencia sólida, firme en el internacionalismo, un país que ha recibido ayuda internacional, no ahora solo en la lucha por la independencia de este país, el general en jefe del ejército libertador de la guerra del 95. Remember this when we went to Fidel Castro Center? Cuba is. We firmly believe in our ideas of internationalism. Cuba has been a country receiving a lot of international support and solidarity. The General-in-Chief of the Army fighting for our freedom against Spain fue Máximo Gómez. Was Máximo Gómez. Pero después el Che. Máximo Gómez was from the Dominican Republic, okay? But then we After all that, we got Che Guevara here from Argentina.
Es decir, los grandes hombres, grandes compañeros, grandes
Big
dirigentes
men, comrades, leaders.
en este país también han sido compañeros de otros países.
Also, comrades from other countries have been here.
Yo voy a hablar de Carlos Roloff, de un polaco. ¿Qué tiene que ver un polaco con nosotros?
I don't want to mention Carlos Roloff,
Un general
a
polaco.
person from Poland. People will say,
No,
why is a
Henry
Polish
Reid.
person fighting in Cuba
Henry
against
Reid.
Spaniards, against
Me
Spain?
recuerda, la doctora me recuerda a Henry Reid.
Henry Reid,
Norteamericano.
from the US,
La
Brooklyn.
brigada de solidaridad en el campo de la medicina lleva el nombre prestigioso
The Cuban Solidarity Brigade for medicine is named after Henry Reid.
Y después, por último, quería decir lo siguiente.
I wanted to say lastly this.
A nosotros nos ayudó mucho la Unión Soviética.
We got a lot of help from the former Soviet
Seríamos muy
Union.
ingratos si no se lo
We
dijéramos.
will be lacking gratitude if we don't express what they did for us.
Y no hay nada que esconder porque nunca fuimos subordinados de la Unión
And we don't
Soviética.
have anything to hide. We never ever were satellites of the Soviet Union. There is a moral
Ayudar a los demás.
obligation to help the others.
Y eso explica
And that explains
que nosotros pensemos que no nos sentimos totalmente seguros en nuestra libertad cuando hay otros que están sojuzgados y que
we
están
don't
sometidos.
feel safe in our freedom when there are others that are submitted in their places. We are not secure in our freedom.
So yeah, I love them talking about internationalism. This is also why I get confused by Trotskyists. I'm like, Marxist-Leninists have internationalism. It's already a part of the ideology. Like, I don't understand, but whatever. So yeah, I thought this was really powerful. They're talking about Palestine, they're talking about Iran, and they're talking about internationalism and how the international community of revolutionaries, of communists, of socialists, of workers has always come together to support each other. And I think that's why they're so focused on understanding that, like, we are not our governments, that we are different than our governments, and why they were so grateful to have an international delegation of socialists show up to help them. And I always said this, if I wanted to go to Cuba, but I wanted to go as a socialist, not as a tourist. When you go as a socialist, it's different. You're greeted by socialists. You get a socialist experience in Cuba, right? And it is because internationalism is so important to them, and because Cuba gives so much to the world. Cuba gives so much to the world. And we'll see that when we get into later days where we could do deep dives on their education system, their educational history, their medical history. You'll see how much they've given to the world. They've given their fighters to liberation movements around the world. Victor was talking about how he went and fought in liberation movements in other places. And something really interesting we'll talk about too is how their military system works. It's all volunteer based. Even once you're in the military, it's volunteer based. You have to volunteer to go on every single mission. And how important they thought it was to go on those missions to help other countries' liberation struggles. Because as they said, how are we comfortable in our freedom when other people are oppressed? We have to be a united front. We have to be a united front against imperialism. And together we're stronger. Together we are stronger. We must stand together. So very, very, very touching stuff. Right? Party 69. Cuba gives endlessly and gets nothing in return. Virgo, you are so correct. Party 69. Yeah, true. So very, very beautiful experience in Cuba. Now, I have a few more videos I want to show you to end our day one on Cuba. We'll probably have another 30 minutes here, I think, today. I know it's late, but I think that all week we're going to run late. And so, like I said, I'm just keeping my work website on 50% off through the rest of the week so I can focus on getting the Cuba content out to you. Because their one ask they had, the one ask the Cuban people had was go tell everyone everything. Let them understand Cuba. Let them understand us. Let them understand what's happening here. So I'm trying to prioritize that. So another way you can help is, of course, yes, to just like go buy things at my normal job if you want. Shipping's a little bit slow because I'm focusing on this, but everything's 50% off on the website because I just want to keep money coming in for work while I focus on this. And my streams will be a little bit longer this week because of that. So the things I want to show you now are the messages from Cuban people that I thought were the most important. like for you to hear. Like, this is the message that I heard where I was like, this is what they would want to be able to tell the world if they could. So we have 5 videos that I'm going to show you from people. Now let's see. The first video I'm going to show you out of these is a video from the head of the Young Communist League. Ooh, we got a hype chest. Ooh. Okay. So she speaks. These are longer videos. They're like 5 to 6 minutes, some of them. It's very, very interesting hearing her talk, though. And this is the welcoming speech we got when we first got to the MLK Center, when we first landed in Cuba, okay? So I just want you to keep this in mind. This is the first thing we heard coming into it. And I think it's a good way for you to set up your understanding of the content you're going to see in the following days about the details of our experience.
It's a very important moment for us as young people and as people in Cuba. For example, I don't know if have you heard the message from our first secretary of our Communist Party yesterday, saying that, okay, we are in a dialogue, but the Cuban people is ready to defend our land no matter the cost. And that commitment is a commitment of the young people in Cuba too. The majority of the young people, we can say that all the young people feel the same, or all the people in Cuba feel the same, but I can ratify that the majority of the young people and the Cuban people in Cuba is really has a strong commitment to defend our land, no matter the cost or no matter sacrifice. We have a very strong responsibility with our history, with the history of the Cuban Revolution. We are trying to think about this program in two main lines. One of them is taking into account or trying to approach the difficulties that we have as Cuban people in the middle of the blockade, in the middle of the economical war against our people. So that is why, for example, I want to talk about the force to have the fuel to pick you up at the airport, or to have the fuel to make some activities that we will have in the program. But as the part how we are living today. So one hand of the program, you will see the real conditions that we have in the Cuban people, in the communities, in schools, in hospitals, and others. And on the other hand, we would like that you see how the Cuban people is overcoming these difficulties. Because we are not, I don't know, with our hands, I don't know how to say it.
We are not just sitting here with our
We are not sitting here waiting what we face. We are working all days. We really trust that we will overcome these difficulties. We really have the trust to develop our country even in these conditions. So we are preparing for defending our country, of course, but at the same time, we continue working in the factories, we continue working at the hospitals, we continue working in communities, because we really consider that, okay, we are in a very strong moment. You will see the blockade, the economical situation that has some very huge impacts in the Cuban family, of course. But at the same time, we are not talking about this as the end of the revolution. We are facing this moment as part of our revolution in fact, and we are thinking in this moment as we were, for example, in the moment of the Moncada garrison and the attacks of the movement, the 26 movement of July movement in Moncada Garrison, or we are thinking in this moment as the, for example, the Bill of Pigs. That Bill of Pigs victory in 65 years we will have on April. So this is our movement, the moment of the young people in Cuba as well. So this is a very good opportunity. We will see that in that context, this is a very big opportunity to say we are here, we will continue here in Cuba, no matter what happens, no matter if the difficulties increase, no matter if the U.S. government saying that we are going to try to have a military intervention. So Trump is going to pass away as more president of United States pass away. So in Cuba, the young people in Cuba, as the majority of them, we really trust in the Cuban Revolution. We really trust that we are going to face and we are going to overcome these difficulties, and we will have the country that we deserve as Cuban people, and the country that deserves the Cuban, the children, the Cuban teenagers, and the young people in Cuba. So we are not talking about future in Cuba as others needs to be that future. We are building the future with our own hands. So this is the Cuban that we welcome in this context. And thanks for saying, or thanks for give your solidarity in these difficulties.
So she's awesome. We're going to hear from her more later too, throughout the week. But there was our intro. There was our opening. Now, let's see. I have a few more videos. The next one, I'm going to take the opportunity to do a bathroom break while I play it. So it might stop. You'll see me empty in the corner here. And then it might stop and you might have to wait a few seconds. So I'm sorry. But I think it'll be good. You can watch it while you do bathroom break. Oh, it's only 30 seconds. That's okay. I'll be fast. Talk amongst yourself. Have a group discussion. A breakout discussion.
Everything is fair.
Cuba tiene un pasado
Cuba has a past and a
que
history.
todo el mundo conoce
Everybody knows about Cuban history.
y todo el mundo sabe lo que es carácter, la fuerza que tiene todos los
Everybody
cubanos.
knows about the strength of Cubans.
Así que eso solo amenaza.
It's just threat and words.
Not so bad, right? It wasn't too long? Okay, hi, I'm back. Okay. So let's see what else we have going on here. Oh, just got a notification, first time chat, to come check out the stream. Okay, just so you know, I just got back from the Nuestra America Convoy, and we're doing 2 weeks of Cuba content based on my experiences. So I'm showing you guys some messages from some Cubans that I met with, and just some things I think they would want you to hear if they could tell the rest of the world. So here's our next video.
We don't fear personally Donald Trump.
Okay, this one's really interesting. Hold on.
We don't fear personally Donald Trump. We fear a person is Marco Rubio, because Marco Rubio Marco Rubio is Cuban, but his parents have Cuban, and his parents has.
Also, I just want to point this out. What did he say? He said Marco Rubio's not Cuban. And this is when I was like, girl, you Cuban Americans do not want to hear how Cubans talk about you on the island, right? They don't think you're Cuban. You're not Cuban. And they'll be like, why the fuck are you talking about us like the same? I don't know you. You're not Cuban, right? So I think that's really important context. So all those American people who are like, listen to Cubans, and they listen to the Cuban diaspora. Meanwhile, people in Cuba are like, those are not fucking Cubans. Like, what are they doing? So that's what you said. Marco Rubio, he's not Cuban. And they're like, his dad's Cuban? And Marco Rubio's family says they fled. He says, oh, we fled communism in Cuba. They didn't. They fled the Batista dictatorship. They fled the U.S.-backed capitalist dictatorship during a time when the American capitalists were trying to turn Cuba into a glorified fucking Las Vegas that was corrupt, that is run by the U.S. mob, that was rife with gambling, with prostitution, with drug trafficking, right? People were in very desperate capitalist financial circumstances. That is what Marco Rubio's family fled, right? That's what they fled. But they tell people, oh, we fled communism. I'm like, no, you fucking didn't. You fled Batista. I would have fled fucking Batista too, right? And now you're trying to turn it back into what Batista had. The United States wants to turn Cuba back into Las Vegas 2.0. They want it to be some shitty-ass resort town with fucking bullshit, ugly-ass Trump hotels everywhere. And it's not just Republicans who want this. Democrats want this too. This has been a consistent policy of aggression towards Cuba. Weirdly, I hate to fucking admit it, the person who's been the coolest with Cuba has been Barack Obama, the fucking war criminal. But it's not like he lifted the embargoes or the sanctions. He just lessened them a little bit, right? And I hate to even give him that win because I fucking hate him too. But they want a Puerto Rico 2.0. Exactly. Marxist schemers, zero. Yes. That's why the Puerto Ricans and the Cubans say, one bird, two wings, Puerto Rico and Cuba. So, okay. So I just wanted to point that out. Just note that. He says, the person we fear is Marco Rubio. He's not Cuban. That's what they say.
Is emigrate to the United States because the Cuban Revolution.
Before the revolution.
Before. And she grew up not como ustedes.
Not like you.
He grew up with a different perception of the Cuban Revolution, and it's dangerous, very dangerous to Cuba, because it's in 2028. 2028. He is elected to the president of the United States. Cuba has no opportunity. Cuba has to destroy. That will be destroyed. That is a very dangerous people.
Okay, wait, this diva, sorry, my sound was off. Everyone was like, oh, she's really shy, but she wanted to come meet you guys. So she didn't talk the whole time. Yeah, so that's what they're thinking. They're like, this Marco Rubio guy's fucking insane. Like, we're afraid of him more than we are Donald Trump, right? Very fascinating. Now, I want you to know, I talked to this guy beforehand. He was helping me. He was also volunteering on the farm, and he told me that there are young people there who are sick of the blockade and think capitalism will fix it. And he's like, it's not a lot, but there are some. It's not most, certainly, but there are some. And I was like, well, what kinds of things upset you, And he was like, well, okay, here's what upsets me. Like, and this is the guy I was telling you about. I told you guys this earlier. He goes to the doctor, he says, and for a fever, and they prescribe him medication for his fever, and then he goes to the pharmacy. Well, they don't have the medication there because of the blockade. He can't get the medication for the fever. And I was like, do you think that would be better under capitalism? And he's like, yeah, probably, because we could have access to the medication. And I was like, cool. I've never gone to a doctor because I had a fever in my life. And he was like, what? And I was like, I've only been to a doctor 5 times in my entire life. I counted it the other day, 5 times in my entire life. I'm 40 years old. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, because we have a big income, but we have bigger expenses. Most Americans are in debt, and we can't afford to go to the doctor because it's so expensive. So under socialism, sure. Sometimes, even with the blockade, it's not even socialism causing you not to be able to get medication, right? It's the United States fucking with you. And guess what? If you're a capitalist, the United States is going to fuck with you even more, right? Okay. But I didn't say that. I said, whatever, yeah, the blockade, it's bad. You think that maybe if you went capitalist, the United States would lift the blockade. Okay. But then your healthcare is going to be privatized, and then you're not going to be able to go to the doctor at all. So you're going to have even less medication than you do under socialism, because you're going to get zero medication. Because I've never got medication from a doctor for a fever. That's just not a thing you're going to be able to afford under capitalism. You're not going to be able to afford to go to the doctor under capitalism. Like, sorry. And he's in college, and he's studying the period of the USSR that it was dismantled. That's his focus in college. And I told him, the joke about communism and capitalism after the dismantling of capitalism in the USSR, right? And he was like, no, what? And it was like, oh, capitalism did the one thing communism could never do, made communism look good. And I was like, you get the joke, right? It's like, yeah, you have issues under communism, for sure. The United States government makes it very hard. Western imperialism makes it very hard. Capitalism makes it very, very hard for countries to be communist, right? But you don't know how bad it will be under capitalism. You don't know how bad it could be. Even all the difficulties you're facing under socialism, your life will be so much worse if you make that shift, if you make that change. And that's why I said, I don't know if I said this on my TikTok stream or at the beginning of the stream, but for those of us who grew up in poor places, when we go to Cuba, we don't see poverty, right? Because we grew up around poverty. The poverty is equalized, just an equalizer. And it is not a wealthy country. It's a poor country. What we see is the things they have despite their poverty that we wish we could have grown up with. So we say, okay, yeah, they're poor. I grew up in a poor place. Whatever, fine. Power outages sometimes. Yeah, I grew up with power outages where I lived. No hot water. Okay, yeah, that happens sometimes where I live. That's fine. But what I see, I don't see any of that because that's normal to me. So what I see is your free healthcare, your free education, your guaranteed jobs, that there aren't homeless people, right? That you have all these things that we didn't despite poverty. And I might add, your poverty has an external factor, an external cause, which is the United States government, which is the same source of the poverty where I grew up. The United States government is causing both of our poverty. It's not socialism, right? Thank you for the gifted sub. Thank you. But yeah, audio and visual is out of sync. How do I fix it? Try refreshing. I don't know. How do we fix it? Yeah, YouTube CPR for your Uber driver. You come from capitalist Caribbean and you don't even have hot water. Exactly. And a lot of people come from other countries who are like, so my country was poor and capitalist, and it's way fucking worse than this, right? Find it lesbian. Yeah, you grew up in the Central Valley. We had power outages all the time. You didn't know that was normal. That's what I was saying. I was like, in Fresno, we had power outages constantly because PG&E just didn't want to repair their fucking broken ass busted shit, right? And it'd be 110 degrees in the summertime. People are using their air conditioning so they don't die. And guess what? Power outage for days, for like 4 days sometimes at a time. It is very, very common in the California Central Valley. And that's the wealthiest state in the USA. Hey, welcome to the stream. Hello. Full Metal Marxist. We're reviewing Cuba content because I just got back from the Nuestra America Convoy. Refresh worked? Yeah. Yeah, you didn't even have AC. We had a swamp cooler. Not even AC, a swamp cooler. If you guys don't know what that is, be lucky. Oh, from Cali, first stream as well. From San Jose, hello. Yes, I'm from Fresno, and I have this one, Fresno chest tattoo with a blown out O to prove it. That's how you know. Yeah. Swamp cooler doesn't work at all. Yeah, it's fucked up. It's loud as hell, too. It's so loud. Okay, so your province also had power outages as a kid. So I'm going to show you something else. This is going to be long, okay, but it's special. This is going to be like, maybe this one's not so long, actually. Later on, I'm going to show you more long things from this. This is from the meeting we had with the government of Cuba, where we were invited to hear the president speak and also the head of the Communist Party. So this is going to be a talk from the head of the Communist Party, kind of welcoming us, that I'm going to show you. Okay, so this is what we're going to do next. Yes, yeah, Full Metal Marxist. Yeah, I'm kind of new to streaming. I started at the very, very end of December, but it's awesome. It's way more conducive to the stuff we want to talk about, long-form content. People actually lock in and engage, I think it's just, I'm enjoying it a lot. People aren't as ding-dong here. Over on TikTok, that's brain rot central. That's like brain rot spawn point, right? It's wild over there. So, you know, we're doing better here. Okay, so let's take a look at the message we received from the head of the Communist Party. And I'm going to show you the message from the president another day this week. And for those of you who just showed up, we are doing 2 weeks of Cuba content, deep dive. I want you to feel like you came there with me, right? That's my goal, because that was the Cuban people's goal. They were just like, all we want you to do is go back and just tell people. Just tell people what's going on. Tell them we are not on the brink of collapse. We do not like the blockade. The blockade makes our lives unnecessarily hard. We would like to have power. We would like to have running water that heats up faster, because the issue with the water is the electricity is what works the water pumps, and they have a lot of like 2-3 story buildings, so they can't get the water up high enough. They're like, we want that, but also we are not a country on the brink of collapse. And like, Cuba has survived many things, and we will survive this too. We are a nation of people who wants to defend our country and our revolution. So yeah, exactly. They want to have self-determination, and they should. Exactly. Thank you. Emily isn't there to play. Yeah, so let's watch this video from the head of the Communist Party when we all went there to the Parliament building or whatever, the convention center, I guess.
El movimiento solidario internacional. Por eso debemos expresar el más profundo agradecimiento del pueblo cubano. Nuestro agradecimiento protocolar es el agradecimiento sincero de un pueblo bloqueado, obligado y legalmente sancionado, pero que se sabe acompañado. Cada uno de ustedes, con sus pies aquí en esta tierra, con sus organizaciones, con su voz, nos devuelven la certeza de que la lucha por la justicia no es una lucha solitaria. Y lo recibimos en un contexto que no podemos ignorar. Lo recibimos con el bloqueo recrudecido, con la persecución financiera y energética, con las mentiras repitiéndose en medios internacionales, con nuevas medidas de asfixia. Un imperio nos amenaza con el uso de la fuerza casi a diario. Nos quieren ver en el suelo, rendidos, aplastados. Pero algo tengan seguro, y la historia es el mejor testigo de esta afirmación. No lo lograrán. La dignidad, la fuerza de las ideas y la elevada moral de este pueblo pueden enfrentar los más modernos armamentos. Y aquí hay un pueblo dispuesto a defender al precio que sea necesario el uso de la vida, como decía el comandante jefe, los logros alcanzados por la revolución. Nosotros lo recibimos a ustedes con la misma fuerza de siempre. La resiliencia del pueblo cubano, su valentía y voluntad inquebrantables. Porque si algo define a nuestro pueblo, no es la escasez que nos impone, sino la capacidad de resistir, de reinventarnos y de no rendirnos jamás. Presidente.
Okay, so I just wanted to show you that there's a lot to kind of just point out there. It's like, he's like, we're ready to defend our revolution with everything, including our lives, if we must. And these are not people who are going to back down, right? These are not people who are going to give up. So Donald Trump is like, I can do anything I want with Cuba. It's like, well, not without a fucking fight. You can't. And these people they have the fight in them. They are going to fight. Also, you know, just the thanks. Again, just like the internationalism, the international kind of solidarity they have and the thanks they're giving, right? You know, it's very inspiring. Okay, so the last video I'm gonna play is, I think, the best one. Yeah, they're going down swinging. If they're going down, they're going down swinging. They might not go down. I don't know how much fight the Cubans got in them, but they've done it before. They fought off the United States for a long time. You know, maybe it'll be like Iran. They're like, we've been waiting for you. Oh, funny seeing you here. We've been waiting for 50 years. Like, right? Who knows? They seem very, very confident, though. And yeah, they're motivated by an ideology. They're motivated by something more than money, right? And that gives them a fighting spirit in them. So, also, Cuba is so dear to the international world. Like, so dear to the international world. think about the countries, like, do you think North Korea would let the United States get away with that? Do you think Russia would let the United States get away with that? I don't know that they would. I think that Cuba is so dear to the international community's hearts that it's like, if you fuck with Cuba, like that's a point of no return. And I think that's why the United States has not done that so far, right? If you judge by history, they're not going down. Exactly. Magic Dealer 222. If you judge them by their history, they're going to survive it, right? Let's take a look at this last video. I love this guy. I hung out with this guy. Me and Lily hung out with this guy a couple days later. We just like walked around together, and he was interesting. He was cool. So I'm going to show you what he had to say about like his message. He wished that the world would hear.
Televised internationally about Cuba, that we are so small country and so on and so on and so on. Well, a bunch of lies. That's what you know, that there are a bunch of lies. We're a strong moral country. We're weakened economically, yes, but in our bones and our will to resist, it's forged in our soul. You know? So it's good for you to know that those are just lies. Lies. And we have no fear. Let them come with the guns. Let them come with whatever they want. We'll stand here and we'll fight for those who will stay. Those who will stay will stay. We'll fight, and those who will not, well, shame on them, right? So, I personally want you to. I wanted to thank you to come here. I've never shared with the foreigners like-minded like me, so I would like that to happen again.
As if they did, but we go to the house.
So yeah. So somebody said in the chat, this is the same thing Palestinians said. Yeah, it's the same thing Palestinians are still saying, right? And when you talk to Palestinians now, when we looked at, for example, the Palestinians and the Cubans and the Koreans and what these things all have in common, there's a tweet from the Palestinian man about the DPRK, North Korea, right? And it's like, I hope we are able to rebuild Palestine and have something as nice as what the DPRK has managed to rebuild after they went through what we went through. Remember that the level of destruction that Palestine has experienced is horrific. It's horrific. The DPRK went through that, and they came out and they rebuilt. And look at them now, right? They're protected. They're doing well. So we have to make sure that we are not giving into our instincts to consider battles lost before they are, even at their darkest moments. Even at their darkest moments, right? Gaza is still experiencing a genocide. They are at their darkest moment. That does not mean that they will not survive this, and the people of Palestine are fighting. They are optimistic. They are broken, but they are optimistic. And it is our duty, as long as they are fighting, to back that. Same thing with the Cuban people. Our defeatism, our past tense words, that does nothing to help anybody, right? That does nothing to give up, or to help them, right? If we give up. So, just some stuff. That's our first day of content, guys. That's the overview of content on Cuba. If you got here late, you can watch the video on demand. It'll also be exported to my YouTube. We have a full kind of schedule coming up. So let me repeat the schedule for anybody who came in a little bit late. This is what we've got coming up this week, all about Cuba, and next week. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We're going to do a history overview of Cuba, just for anybody who wants to brush up on it a little bit. We're not going to go into a lot of detail. But we are going to show more videos of Victor Drake talking, because he celebrated his 15th birthday in prison because of his revolutionary activities in jail. So he is relevant to the history. He's a walking embodiment of the history of Cuba. So we're going to hear a lot more from him, which is going to be very, very, very cool. We are going to talk about Castro. I'm so Castro-pilled, guys. I'm so Fidel Castro-pilled. It's not even funny. We're going to show some documents from that. And because it's Weapons Wednesday, we are going to talk about the M4 Sherman tank, which was acquired by Fidel Castro in 1956 and helped him win the revolution. It's my beep beep, sorry. It's my beep beep, sorry. Who's that? Victor Drake? He was a revolutionary who fought alongside Fidel Castro and Che Guevara. It was like the three of them, like the Three Amigos kind of vibe. So, and part of the time when he was in the army for Cuba, his job was keeping Che Guevara alive for some of it. He was not there when Che Guevara was killed. But even Che Guevara's death, go on, pull the trigger. You'll only be killing a man. His final words, right? That was it. And the guy who shot him panicked and shot him in the arms and legs, but did not kill him. And Che Guevara would not even let himself cry out in pain with his final moments. He bit his own arm to stop himself from crying out. So he died in dignity, right? So these are very, very bold revolutionary fighters. Today is Tuesday. Yes, so that'll be tomorrow, Weapons Wednesday. That'll be tomorrow. And the next day, after that, Thursday will be Theory Thursday. We will be reading Castro's On Marxism-Leninism. And I have several sections picked out that we will read. We're not going to get through all of it tomorrow. So it'll be split up between this Thursday and next Thursday. But there's a lot in there that's good for us. Very, very, very good. And on Friday, we are going to be talking about the government of Cuba. I have some videos from the Young Communist League. I have some videos about the Federation of Artists. I have some videos about the Ministry of Culture, the Federation of Cuban Women. I have 20 minutes of speech given by the president of Cuba that I think we'll listen to. It's important. So get your popcorn ready. You're going to sit down and you're going to snack and you're going to watch. We've got the structure of the government we'll talk about a little bit. And I have a banger of a video from a woman who works in local government, just crushing it, like standing ovation style banger video I'm going to show you. We're going to talk about the CDRs. Somebody asked about that earlier, the communities for the committees for the defense of the revolution. We meet some people who are part of those. We're going to talk about the SAF program too, the SAF program, which is a family program, which is very, very cool. That's where I met the woman who was dealing with schizophrenia. We're going to talk about private business in Cuba, how it works. The guy who runs the private business, big surprise, he's a Trump supporter. So we're going to hear from a Cuban Trump supporter. We're going to talk about their electoral process, and we're going to talk about women in government. Then on next Monday for week 2 of Cuba, we're going to do a deep dive on healthcare. We're going to talk about so much healthcare. I am going to show you videos from the hospital. I'm going to show you the most based hospital director on the planet. She is so good. We are going to see videos about their local doctors. We're going to see videos about their pharmacies. We're going to go into a pharmacy and see how that looks. We're going to talk about, also maternity wards, special maternity wards that they have, which is really, really interesting. And we are also going to talk about their exporting of doctors program. And talk about their life expectancy, why their healthcare is so good, basically, despite not having all the same resources we have. Yeah, Cuban Trump supporter, aka observing cognitive dissonance in real time. Hey, he's a businessman. Trump's gonna be great for business, right? Not for him, probably, but maybe. Internal Gusano in training. So, yeah, we are also on Tuesday going to do a deep dive of their education system, along with videos from Cubans about their literacy campaigns. We're going to do a little look into the CIA program to murder their literacy teachers so that they wouldn't have strong literacy rates. We're going to do videos inside of an elementary school. We're going to get to hear from elementary school kids about how their school runs. We're going to hear from college students, more like the guy we just talked to, about what they think about how their education system works. It's a really, really cool system they have for job placement after college also. And we are on Wednesday, after that, going to talk about sanctions, the details of the sanctions of the weapon, the effects of the sanctions on the island, and what's really going on there, the blockade. And we're going to talk about sanctions as a weapon, since it's Weapons Wednesday, and how that is a form of violence that does kill people. Next Thursday, we're going to finish up our Theory Thursday, and day 9 of this content. Next Friday, we're going to wrap, I think, with a look at the Gusanos, the Cuban Americans here in the United States, and those fucking psychopaths, what they're up to. All right. Okay, I'm hydrated. We are ready to go. I'm so happy to be back, you guys. Thank you for joining me on this Cuba journey. I've got so much to show you. I missed you. I missed missed you. Aw. It might be Fidel. It might be Fidel. I think it's Fidel. I think it's Fidel. I'm Fidel Pelt. Wait, let me show you a few things before I go. Hold on. They gave us posters. It got battered on the airplane, but at the MLK Center, they gave us these. So, life-size Fidel hanging up in my house when? Okay, pal. So yeah, we got a lot to look at. So hopefully, though, you guys learned that the narrative that the island is falling apart is not real. And you also learned that the narrative that everybody was mad at the people for going there to give them aid is not real. They welcomed us with open arms and they made me custom vegan meals to thank me for coming. Like, oh, come on. And hopefully, yeah, you guys have a pretty good orientation for us to get into the rest of this, right? All right? I'm going to have to draw Fidel. I love it. And just a reminder, in order for me to be able to do all of this, run my Twitch streams late, I am still taking some time off of my normal job. So if you would like to help support my normal job, I sell clothing and accessories, shoptunnelvision.com. Our whole website is 50% off while I get through all this content with you guys. Keep the cash coming in because I think this is important to do right now with everything that I've learned. This is another part of the trip. It's like I'm still on the trip. So that's it. Hasta la victoria siempre, right? Okay. And I'll see you tomorrow. Yay. Okay. Bye. Oh, should we raid someone? Is Larry on? I didn't even think about that. So many categories empty on the website. Good, people are buying things. Larry. We're gonna raid Larry. Everybody go look at Larry. We love Larry. Why am I so capitalist coded? Babes, I'm not if you've ever read Lenin. Get to it. Chop. I'm especially not if you've ever read Engels. Did I do it? It's always the people who've never read a book that want to tell you what capitalism and socialism is. You guys notice that? It's weird as hell, right? Read the book. All right, bye guys.